On this episode of This is Game Boy Lite, we get extra squishy. Welcome everybody to another episode of This is Game Boy Lite. I never know what episodes we're on, especially now because I took a month off in December. But with me I have two very special guests. I have Sam and Alex, the developers of Squidlit.
Hello.
Hello.
I am Sam.
I'm Alex.
Super appreciative of them coming on. I know you guys done an interview for a podcast in the past already. I did listen to that. It was really interesting to listen to. So yeah, a little bit of things we've been up to. I'll just start quick. I played My Friend is a Raven, which is a horror indie game with 4 different endings. Very short game. It's like 45 minutes maybe to do all 4 endings, but a pretty interesting playthrough. The graphics are all hand drawn.
Ooh,
and
I like that.
Yeah, it's free on Steam too, so it's even better. And they're releasing another game that actually looks more in depth, and it's My Paper Smile, which is coming out Q2 of 2020, which is again another hand-drawn version of a game. So, really interested in checking that out. The sound effects and the audio is what you expect for a free, 20-minute indie game, but it was good. I enjoyed it. I'd give it a 7 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10.
Sounds good. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, I really need to play more indie games.
I play a ton of indie horror games. A ton of indie horror. What else have I been up to? That's really about it. Submitted SGDQ games. Titus the Fox, which I may flip out today for Yonkin Man.
I bought that about a couple months ago because I knew you ran it, and I was like, I should give this a go.
Oh, Titus the Fox?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a great game, but it's not a terrible game.
Yeah.
It's just when you get to like the last few worlds, you're just like, oh, I don't know what to do, and then you realize what you need to do, and you get really upset at the game.
Oh, gotcha.
Is the run fun?
Yeah. So there's 2 different categories. There's easy and there's hard. Easy makes the game run at it's a pretty slow run on easy because Titus walks at a pretty slow pace. Enemies are a pretty slow pace.
Yeah, it just kind of waddles around.
Yeah. But if you play the game at hard, everything is like double the speed basically. So like a normal or an easy mode run is like, I don't know, 12 to 15 minutes. A hard mode run is like 7 minutes. So it literally just gets cut in half.
That's an interesting way of scaling difficulty.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Yeah. It is definitely harder on hard though. Because some of the platforms are real slippery later in the game too, and some of the holes that you'd be able to jump dive through or whatever it would be on normal, you just kind of can't do on hard, at least not to the degree that you could before. So, what else? Oh, I submitted Yearwalk, which is a Swedish folklore horror puzzle game. Made by an indie developer that was originally for mobile phones that got ported to Steam and the Wii U. So I'm really hoping that one out of all of them gets in. Yeah.
Oh man, that's cool.
So out of all the games, I hope that one's the one that gets in. And then Trip World.
No.
Yeah. The
You've
tech
submitted
demo.
a lot of stuff to GDQ.
This year is probably the most I've submitted. Yeah. I've never done all 5 submissions before. But I usually submit every year. I've been submitting to SGDQ since 2015, so.
Wow.
And I've ran Kirby's Dream Land normal mode as a race. At SGDQ 2016. And then I ran Kirby's Dream Land Extra Mode, which is the hardest difficulty, at SGDQ 2018. So, and I just submitted Kirby's Dream Land Extra Mode this GDQ to race against Mr. Cab. And that would be hopefully my last hurrah with KDL ever again. I spent way too many hours into that game.
The only game I could probably speedrun would be Kirby's Air Ride, and I really don't like the way that you spin in that game where you have to waggle the controller. I usually just don't spin. But that's the only game I'm like good enough at where I could probably speedrun it.
Is that the one where you had to hit into the walls and you kind of like spin into the wall to gain speed?
Yeah, you can do that with the wheelie bike.
Yeah, we Pear Strike runs that game. Him and I have talked about that game in detail. And I'm like, I don't know if I'd ever do that category. I would do the one where it's like the top-down view, where it just looks like Mario Kart, basically.
That is really fun and really underrated. Like that version, that mode in that game is amazing.
Yeah, it looks super fun. But yeah, and then I submitted Squidlit last year, but I didn't get in. But this year, luckily, Nuclear got it in. So
yeah. Thank you, by the way.
Yeah, no, it's a fun game to run.
My speedrun time I think is like 12 minutes 30 seconds, 13 minutes, but I messed up it was my first time using that little like splitter thing, so I messed it up, so I never submitted it.
Oh yeah, you get live split. Yeah, I got it into its first marathon with Power Up with Pride, and then
I remember
we had
that
big blind race with it that I commentated, which was super fun. And I honestly didn't even expect it to take off like that at all. I just happened to get I knew I would probably get it accepted because I know everyone that runs behind Power Up with Pride. So I had a probably a bit higher chance of getting it in compared to someone else. But I was like, it's the 10 minutes of glory for Squidlit, in his first marathon. And then I get a DM from Varen, I think it was, and she was just like, hey, we're going to have a blind race of Squidlit between like 4 or 5 different people. Are you free to commentate Thursday night? And I was like, what? I was like, yeah, it'd be great, sure. So, and then all that happened, and I was just kind of in awe that, it even happened with Squidlit, because there are so many games, I guess, submitted into Power Up with Pride.
Squidlit's so short, though, I think that helps.
Yeah,
it's a really good blind racing game, honestly, because like there's no randomness at all.
Oh yeah, it's very set.
Yeah.
So yeah,
we're being careful
very
with
static.
Randomness in Super Squidlit as well. We're like,
yeah.
But yeah, so that's pretty much what I've been up to. What have you guys been up to? I know you guys are working on a new project right now, so
We are.
Well,
for the past month and a half, I have been putting cutscenes into Super Squidlit.
Yeah.
And yesterday I put in the final cutscene with dialogue in it. And so they're all in the game, and I've done a little over 30 in a month and a half. That's what I've been doing.
We went from like 4 cutscenes in Squidlit to
all of them.
Yeah.
That's fun though. I like cutscenes.
Yeah.
It's like they were fun to do, but after a while it gets very repetitive. Like there are like 4 or 5 lines of code that I've memorized just from doing them over and over again, and that's for like the GML lines for like spawning text boxes on the screen and deleting text boxes.
Yeah, and like Game Maker doesn't really help with we had trouble getting fonts to work, so like what happens is like each letter is just like a frickin' just drawn to the screen as part of a sprite. Like
what happened was that like there is a system in Game Maker for doing text.
Yeah.
But you created your own system for doing text, which works in a very different way.
The system for doing text didn't like that we were trying to like line it up perfectly and get pixel perfect for the Game Boy aesthetic.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So we had to make our own.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have Game Maker. One of my friends actually just made a game. I just play tested it the other night. And he made it in Game Maker. It's called Deku's Adventure, and it's about his dog. It's super cute. It's based off of like Super Nintendo graphics.
Oh, cool.
Him and his wife did all the programming and art and everything to it. It's Oh, it's so adorable.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
And,
That sounds cool.
And he shot me a zip file. He's like, "Hey, were you still interested in playtesting?" I was like, "Oh, absolutely." And he sent it to me. I think I sat there for like 2 hours just breaking the game for him. I was like, "Yeah, you need to do this. You soft lock right here. You can't kill yourself here. This and that, whatever." I just went through the whole spiel, and then, but I was just like, I want to see more of this game. Like, I want to see like a story of Deku, like whether it's him being lost in the woods and he needs to find his way back home or what it is. Like, I want to see a story with like at least like an hour of gameplay now with this, because it was so much fun. It was just a basic platformer. You played as Deku the dog, and you could shoot, quote unquote, which was just his bark, and you bark at squirrels and bees. And,
Oh, that's cute.
oh, it was so cool, yeah. But it wasn't based after the Game Boy, so.
I love like little tiny games like that.
Oh yeah.
My
I do too.
probably my like first of all, I haven't played that many indie games in comparison to like making them. Like I haven't played as much as I should, but my favorite one is probably Cellcraft, which is kind of an older one, old Flash game, and it's like you play as a cell and you can like run around, like make yourself bigger by accumulating fats for your lipid bilayer, and like manage your metabolism and stuff, and fight viruses off and stuff like. And it's like extremely educational, and helped me pass a lot of tests in high school.
I was gonna say that sounds like something I would have done in biology class.
But the thing is that it's really fun. Like, it's actually really fun, and I would just play it for just funsies after I was done
It
using
looks
it
like
for
it
studying.
plays kind of like Command and Conquer or something.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an RTS, but you manage inside your cell, and then you can move your whole like city around essentially.
Oh, sure, okay. That actually sounds really cool.
Yeah, I love it.
I've played a ton of indie games. I dominantly, I very much steer towards indie games more than AAA titles nowadays. But I in high school I used to make Flash games a lot.
Oh, neat.
And
That's cool.
only because that's all we had was Flash.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I used to do a lot of Flash games. Stick Death was really popular in high school, so
I think I
made a
remember
lot
that.
of made a lot of Stick Death games. Comics, made a lot of comics based off of that kind of stuff with friends. We made some racing games. Yeah, I've done a lot with Flash, and then ever since then I never dealt with it at all. And then when that Game Boy Studio program came to be, where you can make your own Game Boy game,
Yeah.
and kind of port it to a cart if you need to, because it'll compile it into assembly. I downloaded it, and I think I made one level so far just to see how everything works. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. So I'm kind of want to like poke into figuring out how to do something with that. I want to do like a Guardian Legends type game with it.
I love Guardian Legends.
It's such a good game. So we'll see if I find time to do that in the next few years. But yeah, I don't know. Like, indie games to me are just they're so unique, because I look back at some of the indie games that I've played in really recent history. So like we have Celeste, like that game exploded, out of nowhere. Shovel Knight, that game again exploded out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Squidlit is getting bigger now, which is really fun to watch. The community is growing as well.
Yeah.
There's so many nice people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's fun to see these indie games. Honestly, some of them get more hype than some of the AAA titles coming out. Like Celeste was in the running for Game of the Year against some really big hitting games like Red Dead Redemption and God of War and all those other ones. It's like that game should not have been in that running, in quote unquote video game industry speak. But the fact that game, was A, really good, and B, just has so much love towards it that it almost won.
That's good. Good for them.
Yeah. Now, the unfortunate side is those indie companies will probably get gobbled up and turn into AAA studios, but
I mean, like, that's, well, I mean, not, okay, first of all, I don't really play AAA either. I mostly play, like, old AA is kind of my, like, kind of my, what I usually go for, because I'm very much a console gamer. I don't play on the PC very often, which is really hampers my...
Like, I think the newest console you've played lately is the Switch.
Yeah, I played
You play Smash Bros.
Yeah, we have we got like 4 games for the Switch. Yeah. So one of them's ours. Like, I really think that the quote unquote indie scene is actually normal, and AAA is the weird thing. Like, if you look at way games were made in the 80s and the 90s, like, that much more resembles today's indie scene than the AAA scene does. So, like, I don't know, like, I really think the indie games are really what's really the true continuation of that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think the indie games are what is holding a balance right now for us too, because I think back to even Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance days, just we had so much shovelware on those systems and they were all quote unquote AAA titles, you know. Even if it was Mary Kate and Ashley or NSYNC this, you know, whatever it was still quote unquote AAA titles because it was made by a AAA studio.
Yeah. The Wii was full of a lot of that as well, but the Wii had a lot of also really good games.
The Wii was a mixed bag of something.
It definitely was.
But it's been nice now within the last, I don't know what, 10, 15 years, you know, the indie scene has started really to rise up, you know, whether it's from developers from old studios.
That too.
Or, you know, people like you that are interested in game design, game development, and want to make their own games. Like, there's a lot of this happening, and it's causing a really nice balance between, hey, I still want that nostalgia, I still want that old feeling, I want to support, you know, these people, but at the same time, I also still like my, you know, Assassin's Creeds, my God of Wars, and everything else too. So it's giving that nice balance into there, and we don't have to sacrifice, you know, on one side of the spectrum of, hey, this game doesn't have XYZ, you know, stuff to it, while the AAA game does, and the AAA game doesn't have ABC to it, while this indie game does. So it definitely causes a nice balance in this industry right now, at least as a gamer in itself. So
yeah, the competition between the two is very healthy.
Yeah,
or at least healthy. Like, I think so. Maybe I'm not as like aware of what everything that goes on or not, but like spreading around ideas and stuff is very healthy.
Oh
yeah. All right, well, we're gonna take our first break here and actually more deep dive into Squidlit. So. Alright, and welcome back, everybody. So, Squidlit. First game you two have, I guess, made in a sense where, like, it got released to the general public. Why Game Boy?
I've been asked this enough time to think I would have like a prepared response. But...
it's really about like creativity through limitation.
Yes.
And choosing the Game Boy as a thing to like go after gave specific specific boundaries, because like in a lot of engines nowadays, like your dreams are the limit, really.
Yeah.
But by giving yourself a project with a specific limitation of something like a Game Boy, where it's like you can't have more than 40 sprites in a line, or
10 sprites in a line,
or 10 sprites in a line, or 40 sprites on the screen, or all these limitations, it helps you set boundaries to make it more to make a project more like
Realistic.
and like something you can really look at and expect to actually take on.
I also really am obsessed with old consoles, and
yeah.
I love them all to death. Like there's just something about them that just gets me obsessed with their little intricacies and stuff. And I wanted to make something that emulated that. Emulating is not the right word because it has different connotations like today, but we tried to mimic
yeah.
that.
Because I look at Venture Kid, which is the Mega Man clone, and it's more of a, I would say it's a hybrid between the NES and the SNES type art style. But then I also look at Shovel Knight as well too, and theirs is very heavily catered to the NES. They've even outright said that, hey, like if this game wasn't so big, you could play it on an NES cartridge, because they also limited themselves to 5 colors per sprite and all the other restrictions there is to the NES as well too.
The NES is also 3 colors and a blank color though.
So they based it off of the Mega Man sprite.
Oh
so
yeah,
the Mega Man sprite is 2 different sprites on top of each other. So like the face and everything else of Mega Man is a separate sprite than that of its body. So technically the NES does like 4 colors and whatever else for the second sprite.
Yeah.
But Shovel Knight was just like, hey, we're just gonna make this 1 sprite, so we're just gonna do 5 colors instead. So it's kind of just added it together. So with Squidlit being on the Game Boy platform, we'll say, it's mimicking the Game Boy. How hard was it to create sprites and scenery and just aesthetic through green and black?
So like on the one hand, it was, I mean, there's a lot of limitations and they do like get in the way, but on the other hand, like you can fudge colors, like whereas with something with color you would need like gray and green and something and black and blue. You could like fudge like you could use one grayscale color to represent 2 separate colors. I've noticed that since we've moved to Super Squidlit, it's been a little harder to like the color limitation has come even more like in the way than it was on the Game Boy because like we're working with so many more colors than before. We can't just like use the same color gray to represent 2 separate colors on the same creature.
Yeah, with the Game Boy, it was more about like color through context.
Yeah.
So like you could see the pattern on the wall and just understand that this is meant to be shading.
Yeah,
based
exactly.
off of like how it's shaped and the pattern.
Like if you need dark green and dark blue, you need green, blue, dark green, dark blue. All of a sudden you're at 4 colors. You can't have that. But if you need like a representation of what would be dark green and dark blue, you can use like the same color for that in black and white.
Gotcha. That's interesting. Okay.
Because like you only have 3 colors for sprite and you only have 4 colors overall, so it's like you already got access to most of your.
Yeah.
That's interesting because I would think going into color would be easier, even though you still have a color limitation still going into the Game Boy Color. I would say, I don't know, for me, I guess it would be easier to go into color just simply because of a more creativity expansion. Because like I think the hard part for me, like when I did that one level in the Game Boy program, was figuring out how to differentiate different like biomes, different type of just like sprites in general. It's like I can shape a sprite differently and it can be a different sprite. But if I want to have, say, like 3 different types of ghouls, shaping the three ghouls to be the same, but then shading the three ghouls to be different. I found difficult.
Yeah, that is hard.
Having the 4 different or however many different biomes I wanted. So like I had a snow biome, which was basically just like a light green, because you can't have white on the Game Boy, essentially. And then I had like a desert biome, which then you just had a less light green with spots in it. So it was really hard for me to artistically like show off like the different types of lands through that I could depict to. But if I had color, then I could do white, brown, green, whatever I wanted. So that's interesting to hear that you guys are finding it harder to go into color than it is with the restricted 4-color space with the Game Boy.
Like, that comes back into the whole, like, limitations, like, you actually making the project easier to complete, for lack of better words. Like, Squidlit only has, like, 2 biomes? And then, like, Squat's Lab has some stuff in the background, too, so that's kind of another biome. Like, the game would have been much bigger, and it might not have come out at all if we had tried for color immediately.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have any funding.
No.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's the tough part, too. That definitely plays a factor in this. Like, that's what a lot of the Kickstarters do. Like, people go out to Kickstarters like, hey, I need X amount of money to make this game because we're not getting paid for this. We need money for licensing and programs and whatever it may be. And
like licensing program, making sure we can eat while we're developing.
right, yeah, if it's not your main job, then making sure that you have money to support yourself. And I don't know, it's fun because like I've played Squidlit. I don't even know how many times I've played Squidlit at this point, but it's interesting. Like when you first start off in the game, like you ink the start. You don't just press start to start the game. Mm-hmm. You literally you have an animation to start the game. You jump up and you ink the start. Was that just to be kind of different? Because every Game Boy game that I have played, all 200 and almost 30, I don't think I've ever had an interactive title screen like that before.
That was because once you started the game, that meant that you already knew everything you needed to in order to complete it.
That was that was definitely very inspired by Super Mario Brothers.
Was it?
I remember talking about how Super Mario Brothers has that beginning and how they designed the first level, the positioning of Mario, so to go right. You can't progress without knowing how to jump because of the first Goomba and all that kind of stuff. And the start screen of Squidlit is designed to make sure that the one mechanic of Squidlit, which is jumping and inking before you start the game.
I liked it. I was just I'm start. I'm yep. I think I actually pressed start. The first time I ever loaded it up, I sat there and pressed start. I'm nothing's happening. Because this was the time we didn't have that pause menu.
Yeah.
So I was seeing nothing's happening. So it was just jump and ink, and it was A and B. I'm all right, it's just jump up, ink, and the game starts. Oh, that's really interesting. I almost wish games back then did that, because it's almost just like a tutorial. Because
there've been a number of people who've took them a while to figure it out, because it is kind of bizarre, I guess.
Yeah, it's a little bizarre, but I kind of like it.
Yeah, I very much like it. It's like a tutorial because I don't have manuals for 80% of my Game Boy library, so it's I don't. So if there's no manual online or a game facts online, I have to figure out how to play this game by scratch.
Even if you get a digital manual though, I've never read one of those.
Yeah,
that's fair. I haven't either.
Making one, but we ended up deciding not to.
Yeah, we got some pictures for it, but and it had a little story For how like there's a little bit of story in each of the manuals.
At the start of them. Yep.
Yeah.
I miss those, honestly. Like whenever I buy like new games now, with the exception of the Ori game that just came out, like I open up what's my last? Mario Odyssey. Like I open that up and I'm just like, oh, there's no like real manual in here. Like I missed as a kid like going to the store, buying a game, whether it's Metal Gear or Kirby or something, taking the plastic off, looking at the back, reading the back of the cartridge,
Yeah.
or like the back of the box, and then opening the box and taking the manual out, and then flipping to like the second page because that's where like the actual like story was,
Where
like
the good
reading
stuff
about the story.
Yeah,
It's like.
yeah.
It's like, oh, Liquid Snake, has done this and this and this, and wants to, steal a nuclear bomb and whatever else. And you're like, oh god, yeah. You keep scrolling through.
I was like the character bios.
Yeah.
Yeah, you keep scrolling through the manual, and then you hit like the sprites, like the characters, and it's like, oh, for Legend of Zelda, and then you have, the Goblin, the Moblins, the Link. Then you have the items, like, oh, then you get really, really excited about it. At least as a kid you did. And then you play it, you have that excitement going into that playtime, unless the game was just complete garbage. You have that excitement going into the playtime. You're just like, yeah, this is super awesome, this is amazing. And now I buy new games, I don't get that excitement anymore. Like that whole like opening the treasure box is just gone for me now, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember going to GameStop and buying like an expansion for World of Warcraft and like opening the box and reading the manual to see all the changes and stuff. And that was fantastic. That's
I remember buying physical copies of WoW expansions.
Yeah.
God, those were the days. I remember standing in line for them.
Yeah. Man, I think the last physical one I bought was Wrath of the Lich King.
No, we had Mists of Pandaria.
Oh no! Well, I mean, yeah, I bought the Mists of Pandaria box for you when I was trying to get you to play.
Yeah, I think the last physical one I have is Wrath as well too. It's sitting in my closet still, so along with all the other stuff that I have. But yeah, no, and it's just it feels it. So like. I got a copy of Axiom Verge and Dragon Boy for the Switch, and those came with manuals.
Oh, neat!
And I was just like, "Oh, this is cool!" And I sat there and I did exactly what I did 20-some years ago. Sat there and flipped and read through the manuals.
Aww.
And I got really excited for the game. I still haven't played them yet, but I got really excited for the game. So I always appreciate, even if it is like a digital copy, even if I don't get to it right away. I do appreciate having just like a manual just so I can like flip through one way or another just to like read it, because like it's not just me getting excited, it's also like seeing the excitement of like the creator of the manuals too, because like you can definitely tell when someone is really into the manuals and when someone is really not into making the manuals, because I've seen the spectrum, because I have 3 boxes full of them where it's like they sit there, they write just a really passionate plot, and the screenshots are gorgeous, the sprite work is fantastic, there's no blurriness, like there's actually detail to the background. And then there's some that's just literally just a white manual with like four sentences for the plot, and there's no detail at all throughout the entire manual. It's just directly to the point. So you can tell when someone's like really into it, when someone's not really into it. And when they're really into it, that brings a lot more excitement into playing the game. So,
well, if we can afford it, we'll make sure to put one in any physical releases we do.
Yeah.
Oh, physical.
Well, we don't have any hard plans for that, but
Yeah, we'd love to, but
yeah.
Physical releases are something else too, especially in the indie scene. Like know this probably way better than me, but like you have to, once you've made the game, right, you have to find a publisher for it, right, to get a release.
Yeah.
Unless you know how to do it yourself.
yeah, you have to find some company that'd be willing to do a physical printing run.
Yeah, like what are they? Limited time games or limited time
limited
runs?
press.
Limited run.
Yeah.
Limited run.
Limited run. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so progressing through Squidlit, the first stage again, we have that castle up. It's not in the sky technically. It's on top of the mountain.
Yeah. Just kind of in the background there.
Yeah. It feels like it's very much inspired from. I can't think of the name now. I can't think of the NES game at the top of my head, but you could see like the final level, Ninja Gaiden. So you can kind of see like the castle in the background of the cutscenes.
Hadn't played it at the time.
So you're like, oh, that's where I need to go. Like that's the end of it all right there. And then once you've defeated, I forgot the final boss's name, the castle just crumbles and goes away. Similar inspiration there, or you just wanted to have the castle in the background?
I hadn't played Ninja Gaiden at the point of Squidlit's release. I played it now. Makes me upset. And I did get pretty far in it though, but I'm not
it's a
sure
hard game.
I'll give it another go for a while.
It's very hard.
It's a very hard game.
Like I was fine with it until there was that like weird like jump around the. I think most people know what it is. That weird like block that's coming down off the ceiling, and you have to get under it and jump really weird. Anyway, that's another story. But that was just like Thalmage the Squizzard was just like talking about there's a spoopy castle, and then you don't see a spoopy castle anywhere. It's like, oh, we got to put a spoopy castle here so that people can see it, and it's like, there it is. And you start out in Blipston and Super Squidlit as well, and you can still see it in the background.
Nice.
You're actually on the like you go left at the beginning, and you start in Blipston, and you can still kind of see to the right like the first, like the town's the same. I wanted that to be like canon, like what the town was like. And if we ever do like a 3D game, the town's gonna be like a line of buildings.
Just like on a single road, just a single,
The amount of times, like when I was sitting there trying to break the game that one night, the amount of times I sat there and tried to like make that castle just let me go to the final stage was amazing. Like I spent like 45 minutes that night just like this is probably just a spray, but just to make sure. Like I sat there 45 minutes trying to like make that castle let me go to like stage 4 and be done.
That'd be funny.
But as we move through the town, what I thought were fireballs are flowers or bushes, right? Those they're like round to the bottom. They're like right before the houses. Like as you've walked past.
And
those are the pots of petunias.
Yeah, I wanted the first obstacle to be a pot of petunias.
Okay. At first, I'm like fireball. I'm like, oh, I'm already in trouble. And I inked it, nothing happened. I landed on top of it, nothing happened. I'm like, this is a bush.
We still have that bush in Super Squidlit. It's still there.
But in the first stage, you have so many Squidlits.
Oh, yes.
So many.
Oh, so many.
Right
They live there.
Right. You have so many at the start. My favorite set is towards the end of that first screen, and it's the band. And that's probably my favorite Squidlit set of the whole section. And then you have Squidlits randomly throughout the game. You have the Metal Gear Squidlit, who is the one that was supposed to go out and
Riverjack.
Yeah. He was the one that was supposed to go out and I forgot the lore already. Not fight Squiz Squad, but
he was sent to investigate the castle before you, but he was being stealthy, so he took a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And found wall meat. I appreciated that homage a lot. But the first screen is basically it's your basic tutorial. Like it teaches you how to jump on top of ledges. It teaches you not really how to ink yet, but you kind of get the gist of how the ink works, especially from the start screen. And if you're jumping like a casual player, like I inked all over the place when I first started because it was cute. So you understand the inking mechanic definitely by this point too. Then you're tossed into the second screen where you have the Viking Squidlit.
Oh yes.
Who I thought was amazing as well too.
Yeah.
I love Scoot.
And I always run into that first wall. I always forget to jump. still to this day, that one little ledge. And then you face off against your first Oblong, which is an interesting sprite in itself. I can understand the snails and the caterpillars. I can't remember the actual caterpillars' names now. Sharkerpillars.
Yeah.
I can understand those, but
Yeah.
Oblongs are a major part of the game, so like
are.
they're introduced right away. What was the idea behind the Oblong, and why introduce them right away, like literally right outside of the town?
So the Ooblugs are actually there was a while I was messing around with Game Maker in like maybe a year before Squidlit started being made. Like there was one of the demos was a like thing where you played as an Ooblug who was Artemis, the one that you free from the cell, and you go around and you can like push blocks and stuff, and it never got very far, but like they were like some of the sprites from that are not they're like touched up versions of that original game's sprites. And Ooblugs are just like alongside Squidlits. I've been drawing them for a while, or creatures that are inspired by them or that were inspired to become them. Like I draw a lot of fairy shrimp because I like them, and they're kind of based on fairy shrimp. And unfortunately, like they have 6 arms, which really limited their ability to be drawn in such a tiny thing. They have 4 arms and 2 legs, so 6. And
They do.
yeah, they have 4 arms. And that's why they look so weird, is because that was really hard to draw, especially when I was like, I didn't know how to draw very well. And
I never noticed the six limbs before.
So like Artemis is of course a playable character in the second game, and actually on his run sprite, we just kind of hide the second pair of arms.
Yeah, we just Alex ended up just like. We just have this canon of like he'll just tuck his arms into his sleeves.
Yeah.
Have his main arms out, and the other ones are like tucked in the sleeves or something.
They're also slightly taller now. Squid Squat. Yeah. The canon is that Squid Squat has put out a decree that all Ooblugs should stand up straight, and so they're slightly taller.
Yeah.
And we do everything we can to not break the fourth wall. Like,
Yeah.
Plimp is canonically colorblind, which is why that the game is in black and white, and why the doctor's like, "Wow, that's so weird that you think everything's green." And she gets rainbow eye drops in the second game that allows her to see in color.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. That is amazing. So you introduced them really early on. Big role in the game. Like you see them in every stage of the game.
Yeah.
Are they're Squid Squat's minions essentially, right?
Yeah, most of them are, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Because we come across a little town right before stage 3. Like between stage 2 and stage 3 is probably my second favorite part of the game, because it's not really a stage per se. It's almost like an interactive cutscene throughout that you can just happen to skip a stage if you really want to.
Yeah.
But it's really fun to interact with the Ooblugs, because they typically shoot at you or they hurt you, but in this case you can talk to the whole town. Some of them even give you muffins.
Oh yes.
Why are there 2 different sides of Ooblugs?
The ones that don't hurt you are not employed to be guards. Like, they're just villagers.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's like when you see like a dog wandering down the street, and like a dog catcher would like chase it and capture it, but a random person would be like, "Oh, aren't you sweet?" And like give it a treat and then send it on its way.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, Squidlits are pests to Ooblugs. Like, they live in the walls and just kind of squeak and be bothersome.
Yeah.
That's why they spray
Okay.
for them.
So in that town, is that where Squid Squad recruits the guards? Is from that town, or is there another
That's
town?
her town.
Yeah, Squid Squat is the empress, or she calls herself emperor, but she's the empress of the kingdom that that town is in.
Okay.
And that is her seat of power.
And,
Gotcha.
And like once you enter the castle after that Oobleug guard is like, no Squidlets allowed in, and that you're essentially in the castle from there on out, and that's just like the inside of the castle. That's where the living quarters are.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's like the courtyard. Okay.
Yeah,
I
it's
see.
like a courtyard.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think of it like that.
Like you
I
pass
just
the
thought-
outer walls, and then
wow.
you go into like the inside of the castle city.
Yeah, the castle is 3-tiered, as you can see from the sprite in the first screen, and like the outer wall, which you crash into on the hovercraft, is the first one. The library is the second level, and then Squid Squat's Keep is the third level.
Oh, this is just completely blowing my mind. I didn't think about this at all at that level. Oh wow. Because like
Squidlet
yeah,
lore.
you fly into the castle wall or like a wall. I just assumed it was like a wall that you just had to get around.
No, it's the first level of the castle. It's the first like tier of the castle.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I am mind blown right now by this. Wow, I did not connect that to wow. All right. Thank you for sharing that. That's
Oh, you're very
that's a whole
welcome.
that's a whole another level of lore that I just did not think about with this game at all. That adds a lot of complexity. That adds a lot more complexity to the lore of this game. Because like when a person would play this, like for me for example, like the first few times I've played this. I actually didn't read the text boxes at all. I just kind of mashed my way through it. And I got stuck at the wall because I actually have to hit right at the selection screen because I'm not a Squidlit or, whatever it was. And so, like, the third or fourth time coming through, like, I was like, oh, I need to submit this to a marathon. Let me figure out what the lore is to Squidlit. So I actually could be able to commentate the game. So I sit there and I talked to every Squidlet I could find, every Oobleug I could find, and read every dialogue box that popped up.
Boy.
And I was just like, I got to the wall and it says like Squid Squad God Emperor Castle, I think it's at the very end. It's like, okay, I'm at the castle now. But at the very beginning, it's like, no Squidlets are allowed in. It's like, I'm not a Squidlet, ... Oh, okay, you can pass right on through. And it's like, oh, okay, so I just literally just passed like a wall to get to the castle now. But now you guys are saying like, no, that's like the first level of the castle, and then the second one is the library. And I'm like, what? I'm just like, that makes a lot of sense because in the final cutscene, it just inks everything inside of the castle, and then
Yeah.
everything outside of it, there's no ink at all. Like they're not bothered at all by it. I'm like, this makes so much more sense now.
And yeah, it's like a kingdom city state kind of thing. They have
Yeah.
contact with the outside and Squid Squat rules over.
Like the countryside and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, just progressing through stage one again, we get to like a part where we have these enemies that throw down lightning rods as well too. At the end of that screen, you have to face off against an Oobleug, a lightning rod enemy, and Squidlet jumping and inking. There's a lot kind of going on that part of the screen, but the game, performance-wise, is perfectly fine. So like with sections like that throughout the game, because there are some like that throughout the game where there is kind of a lot, quote unquote, going on. How are you able to just make it not go down to like 2 frames a second, so to speak? Because like even in stage 2, when you fall down this shaft, essentially, you have 4 or 5 Oobleungs with a major guard sitting there too, and you kind of just ink over all 5 of them, and you're dropping a lot of sprites down with also having interactable sprites on the screen, and every once in a while you'll hit 1 or 2 of them. So that Oobleung is waving its hand in its air, running around the screens. Like there's a lot going on, especially for Game Boy terms. Was that kind of a nervous point for you coding this, or was it just kind of like, hey, we can do this and not suffer any type of performance issue at all?
So that's the reason why the game is capped at 30 frames a second. We could have like done a slowdown thing where we slow down the frames like a Game Boy would. Like we could have had the game run at 60 frames a second, and that would have solved a lot of camera nausea issues. But like because of that, people would have thought that like the game was actually running poorly. Like we could have throttled the frames per second for that area, but people would have thought that the game was actually programmed poorly. Also, in terms of the game actually running well on your computer, like it's only 160 by 144. It's like literally like the tiniest screen it could possibly be.
Like, I don't think Squidlit is even like 1 gigabyte.
Yeah, it's
in a really small game.
It's very small.
Yeah, it was a quick download on Switch even too. So
the another thing is that like in that section after you fall down the shaft and you see like the knight and the 4 Ublug or the 3 or 4 Ublug casters. Another thing to remember is that like all of those guys, they're only calling 2 sprites.
Yeah,
like the Ublug casters are all calling 1 sprite, and the knight is calling on 1 sprite. So that having multiple objects that call upon the same resources helps the processing speed a lot as well.
There's also those little Ublugs who are on the ground. They're slightly lower because of the restrictions of number of sprites per line.
Yeah.
And the same goes for like Riverjack with his muffins that are in a little pit.
Yep. I was wondering about that. I was like, why are the muffins in a pit?
Because it would have been too many sprites.
Yep.
Makes sense. Interesting. So again, keep it in stage 1. You get to the end. So at the end, you have to kill off 12, 15 bugs, essentially.
Oh, yes.
And it's funny because you can either talk to the Ublug that tells you, hey, you have to kill 15 of these. And at the top, there's a counter, and there's a sound that it makes every time you kill one. I never noticed that until I played it on the Switch. But if you don't talk to the Ublug, there's no counter, and there's no sound effect.
Yep.
I never noticed that until I played it on the Switch. I thought that was a really interesting addition into there. Most people are going to talk to it. If you're a casual player, you're going to just talk to the Ublug. Just talk to everyone.
Most people ink on him first, which is why he wears the hat.
Yep.
I didn't realize that at all.
That's why he has one of those wicker circle hats.
Yeah.
I don't know what those are properly called.
I thought he was a farmer.
He is.
Yeah, he is.
Oh, okay.
He has a rice paddy.
Yeah. It's a tiered rice farm.
I was just like, oh, he's a farmer and he has a bunch of insects on his farm and it's up to us to go beat them all. Okay. I didn't realize the hat was to protect him from ink as well, too.
Oh, yes. Huh. Squidlit's about.
Yep. There's squidlets in Demdar Hills.
Yeah.
So once you go through and ink up all the enemies, you get to go on this flying contraption is it another Ublug at the end of the stage, too? It's a different Ublug, right?
No, it's the same guy.
That's the same guy.
It is the same person. Okay.
In the beginning of the game, people would go back and try to talk to the first instance of that guy. So we actually updated it so that he walks off screen now.
Yeah. Well, we had it updated so he would like teleport to the other side, and then we decided that he should actually like walk off screen. And then like wait for you at the other end of the farm.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's the same Ublug. Now he gives you a flying contraption. Now you go across Sharkerfly.
Mm-hmm.
So a shmup fight, just a basic shoot 'em up. But it's interesting too is that depending on how far away you are from Sharkerfly, you get a different attack. How many shoot 'em ups did you all play to get inspired by a shoot 'em up boss? Because that's a really interesting dynamic to a Game Boy game as well too. Because there aren't many Game Boy games that steer away from being a platformer and then going into a shoot 'em up. There's only a handful that I can think of off the top of my head, at least right now. And it's Mega Man 5 for the Game Boy and Batman for the Game Boy.
There's Mario Land.
And there's Super Mario Land 1, right? So, but Super Mario Land 1 had worlds or levels dedicated to a whole shoot 'em up versus you get a flying contraption and now you're instantly into a shoot 'em up, which the first time playing this thing, you may die a few times. Like, it was actually a pretty difficult fight for me the first couple times because
It's got a lot of health. It's got 60 health.
it has a ton of health.
Yeah, it does.
It has a ton of health, and depending on how far away you are from the Sharkfly, it does two different attacks. It will either do a try shot at you,
Yeah.
or it shoots fireballs at you as well
Acid
too.
balls.
Depending on how far away you are.
Fucking acid
And
balls.
I was getting owned like the first few times I fought the boss. I was like, "What is happening?" I'm like, I'm like, I'm decent at shmups, but this is hard right now.
So the reason for the reason that you can go faster with the your shots is kind of taken from Centipede, where the closer you shoot, there can only be one shot sprite on the screen at a time,
Right.
and that was because like you got sprites per line to worry about again, so you can only have one in front of you, and so you can shoot faster if you get closer and risk more, which was also really fun. And just the acid loogies are just there so that like it's Fizz acid. They're actually called loogies in the code. And they're there so that you can't just
sit there next to the touching the the Sharkfly and just spam them down in 3 or 4 seconds.
because the tri shot can't hit you if you're in certain areas,
Yeah.
so the loogies are there to take care of that.
Right. Okay. Huh. And then once you defeat Sharkfly, you fly off. You have this adorable cutscene of Plip flying this aircraft and crashing into the side of the castle.
You can still ink during it.
And you can still shoot and ink during it as well too. Another interactive cutscene. And then you land and there's a bunch of muffins on the steps leading up to the guard. And then, so I have to ask, when you created the dialogue box for the Oobleug guard, did you purposely make it so that a person had to press right in order to pass through?
A bit pressing right. Yeah, we just didn't want you to have to. You could just press A to mash through.
Yeah.
Smart. There was when I first played, I was like A. I'm like, I've seen this dialogue box 3 times now. Right. Oh, okay. Just get through. I'm like, okay, gotcha. And I was like, I'm sure they intended me to read that now. So, but once you get in, you're right into the fray of things. Like, there's kind of just not a lean into the stage type deal. There's as soon as you make that first jump, you're introduced to a ghoul and an Oobleug caster right away. And then once you've maneuvered through that, this is where a lot of inking, this is where your inking skill really comes heavily into play, because some of the pits that you could fall into, if you, instead of just falling and jumping up or jumping over them, you can just ink over them, and you really just don't lose any time at all, because you maintain basically your height while inking. When you made Squidlit, and more dominantly the ability to ink with Plip, I know we talked about this a little bit before, but with its inking, we can do what we call a pause buffer and speedrunning, where we can actually start to lift off into the air while inking a little bit. When inking, did you have to think about hey, I need to put some sort of delay into this, or was it let's just keep into the game and let people find it if they find it?
So yeah, that was we definitely had a delay, and that's actually the reason for the flip. That was where the flip initially came in, is because it waits until you're done flipping for a second animation to do, and you can also, the player can see that they're not done flipping yet, so they can see that they can't ink again until their flip is over.
Mm-hmm. I remember playing one of the earliest builds of Squidlit before the flip was in there, and we had so much fun just like mashing spacebar as fast as we could, watching Plip like fly off into space as she spams ink in like a solid screen. It was very entertaining, but we were like, we can't let players go through the game like this.
So in the second stage, it's a lot of downwardness in this stage too, which is really confused me more that it was the first level of the castle now too, because there's a lot of downward movement. So going through and getting into the prison section, so much later on into stage 2, get into that prison section, you have 3 different prison cells. The first one is the Muffin Man, I call him all the time, because he runs out and throws muffins behind him.
Yeah.
The second one is just an ooblug that's just chilling, basically.
They're the ooblug. I don't know if you've talked to the ooblug who's all like garbage theory and stuff like that. That's them.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you have the third one that obviously gives you the key.
Yeah, and his name is Artemis, and we don't actually have his name displayed anywhere in the game.
No, we don't.
Because we didn't really have, we wanted the game to flow, but we probably should have put it in there somewhere. Yeah.
Because from that door on, Artemis follows you up until the stairwell to the Squisquat castle, like the main part of the castle. Right? That's Artemis sleeping on the steps, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So going through the prison section there, like you talk to the sleeping ooblog, like, oh, no one's gonna come in here and pester me, and he just drops a key.
Yeah.
And then so like you have this one key, and you have the 3 cells. What was the thought behind having the 3 cells, A, and then B, did you think about putting like an enemy behind one of the cells, where like if Plip were to open it, he would have gotten hurt?
We didn't really think about, because that would have been maybe that could have been done in a way which was unfair, and we wanted to avoid that.
Sure.
Like, whereas like there's an enemy here, all of a sudden, ouch. Like we could have done that, but like we kind of wanted to. Like the Muffin Squidlit, like that is a thief. Like that, they steal muffins.
Yeah.
And that's a no good. But the other 2 were, frankly, not that bad of folks.
Yeah.
Like Levy, the one, like, sorry, I know all their names just cause. But that one with the garbage theory, she just wasn't saying God Emperor after Squitsquat God Emperor.
Yeah.
Or maybe Squitsquat might have
Right.
had another reason to jail her.
Maybe.
And
Bum, bum, bum.
and Artemis was like actively defying Squitsquat at the time, so he was jailed as well.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, Artemis' story I understand up to a certain degree. The other one I didn't completely get. Like it made, I could connect it to maybe a couple of the ooblugs, but at the same time, like I was like, oh, they just didn't put God Emperor in front of Squisquat, so they just got jailed. And I was like, all right. But yeah, tying it to all that together now, it makes a lot more sense. And then the second stage boss. So a lot of us call it the washing machine. What was the idea behind this boss? Because it's an interesting layout for this boss too, because like once you've exited essentially the wall, you're into this almost eerie openness where there's only 2 enemies coming at you. There's 1 muffin to pick up, and like the music drastically changes to what was a fairly high tempo and, you know, a medium tone to like this almost quietness, like eeriness, as if something big, you know, like something, you know, ominous is going to happen. And then you enter this door, and now you have this this mega enemy in front of you. You have this boss in front of you, and in the background you still see mountains, you still see trees and shrubbery. You have all of this. It's as if you're almost in a graveyard setting almost.
It is a haunted golem.
Yeah.
Even better.
I guess that could be like the closest we ever get to a graveyard in that game.
Yeah, like those two little spirits that come out of it. Their names are Unibiru and Unibilu.
Yeah.
For right and left.
They and I'm pretty sure they are canonically Ooblug.
Yeah,
ghosts.
they're Ooblugs.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, they're Ooblug ghosts, and they were honored by having their own golem, which is based off a Japanese lantern.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So during that boss fight, it takes 8 steps, and after 8 steps, its chute at the top opens up. And then after some time, the ghouls come out and attack you. It takes a while, but they do come out eventually. What was the idea? So we go from Sharkerfly, which is a shoot 'em up and a semi-difficult fight casually, to this fight here, which is very static. 8 steps, opens a chute, jump up and eke into it. And then after 3 hits, it's down, and it just progressively gets a little faster. What was the idea behind going from the Sharkerfly fight to the Golem fight?
The Golem was actually made first, and it was the first boss I'd ever made, so it was kind of simple.
Oh, okay. I was just curious behind the thought behind it, because like you look at some of the other bosses too, like you look at Grimoire. That boss has a lot of stuff going on with it, and then you look at Squish Squat, which on the surface is a seemingly simple fight, but there's also a lot of mechanic to Squish Squat fights as well too. So just kind of seeing the Golem there, it just made me think it's like. So, because when I first came across this thing, I was expecting this thing to like shoot like a fist off at me or Goomba stomp me, or try and do something of the sort. But knowing that it was a first design boss, definitely makes a bit more sense too. Because I think about Alien 3 on Game Boy, made by Jason Austin, and he talked about how they had 5 weeks to make this game for Probe and get it out. And yeah, because I even asked him too later on. I was like, "Hey, like, was it more intense to develop back then, or is it more intense to develop now?" And he's like, "Back then, 100%, because you only had weeks to complete games.
Yeah.
Like like the crunch time was insane." So like I asked him, and I was like, "Hey, like, the final fight for Alien 3 is literally just you have to push this exceptionally slow moving thing and honestly just get lucky that you get the queen and push her into the lava." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I put that in like 3 days before we released the game because we realized we didn't have any bosses."
Oh,
and I was
man.
like, "Oh." So, 100% understandable. But yeah, it's crazy to think about it too, because the Golem fight as well too. Just thinking about it is, if you don't shoot down the chute, the spirits come out and attack you, which can be a little misleading too. Because when I first encountered the fight, I stayed very far away from it, and then it stopped and opened a chute, and I didn't think anything of it, and I saw these 2 flying projectiles come out of it, and I'm like, "Oh, this isn't too bad. I just run and jump and ink into the chute." And then the first time I did it, I got hit by both sprites immediately. And I'm like, okay, well, I clearly waited too long for this. So
yeah, you could just kind of rush that boss, and it can't really do much if you go fast against it.
Yeah.
It's very much harder the first time you fight it if you don't figure it out immediately, which a lot of people do.
Yeah. If you overthink the boss, it is much harder than it is.
The thing is, that boss is still made up of like 5-6 objects with different animations and stuff. Like, coding wise, it's not incomplex. Like, it's
there's a lot going on with that boss. Like animated wise, there's a lot going on with that box because you have the legs at the bottom that have to move, and then you have the chute at the top that moves. The belly inside swirls and spirals. Like there's a lot going on with that boss.
Yeah, and also it extinguishes when you ink in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it breaks down after the third ink. So like there's just a lot going on with that boss. So even though it is quote unquote a simple boss, it's the animation to it is very complex. So but we move on and we go into the townsfolk. This is by far my second favorite part of the game.
Oh yay.
It's something you don't encounter in a Game Boy game or any type of game, really, unless you're playing like an RPG. Like you go into this town and everyone's happy, friendly. You have a scientist who's like, "Hey, can I put an experiment with you?"
Yeah.
Hurts you, gives you a muffin. Awesome, it's like, oh, that was cute. You go into the cafe, it's like, and then you go on top of the cafe. There's someone else there. There's little like these shops, and it's its own interactable little town that, on the surface may not be much. Like you may just walk through it, but like if you interact with each one of those ooblugs, like they're their own different personality throughout the entire town, just like it would be, in real life. And I thought that was a nice touch to the game too, because it wasn't just stage like it is typically in any other video game. It was stage. Hey, have a cute town and interact with the people of this town, and then it was stage. And then you have the multiple endings with Squiz Squad. What was the thought to having the town in there? Like, was that just kind of a, hey, we should put this in because it would be cute and it would be fun, or was it in there to be like, hey, like this add additional lore essentially to Squidlit?
Yeah, we wanted Squidlit to be set in even though it's short, we wanted it to be set in a world instead of like just levels.
Yeah.
Like we wanted it to feel more like not everyone on this adventure is hostile, and the people do things. Like Squid Squat's castle is a functioning society, and these characters do things. And that cafe is actually a bar, but it's been censored. You know how they even got like frothy mugs in the background. You know how like in
I did notice that, yeah.
Most old games that come to America, they censor beer into coffee.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, aren't you too young to be drinking coffee?
Yeah. And the Rubican's name is a combination of what's it? Rubinium? Rubus something, which is for coffee's genus or family, and then cannabis, which is the name for where hops comes from, for the genus of hops.
It's cute too, because it's just like I said, it's something you don't encounter in a platformer. Like it's something that I would, if I were playing like Final Fantasy or Secret of Mana or something like that, I would expect to see something like this. But playing a platformer, I would expect to see this maybe at the start of the game, but never like in the middle of the game.
Yeah.
Because I look back and like the only other game I can think of that does something like this is Castlevania 2. On NES, Simon's Quest, because once you collected so many hearts, you have to go back to town, buy your stakes, buy your items, and then you go back out there again and go into the next castle and find the next piece of Dracula. So it's interesting to see just all of like this whole realm basically like come together like in a journey, because a lot of times, like, you look at Mario even. Like, Mario was stage, and the story was Mario needs to go save Daisy, or Mario needs to go save Peach, or Mario needs to go save Paulina, depending on which Mario game or Mario series that you're playing. Even true with Mega Man. Like, Mega Man is stage, with a couple cutscenes here and there. But the end is Mega Man needs to go defeat the Robot Masters and then go defeat Dr. Wily from taking over the world. They could, definitely have added what you all did into the games to add more lore and more of a world around it. But they just didn't. And honestly, like some of those games, like in result, like they end up getting comic books and cartoons anyway, so it kind of just helped wrap that world around a bit more for them. But yeah, no, I was really appreciative because it was a nice break too. Like even though it is a short game, it was a nice break because because the first Oobla encounter I tried to ink and nothing happened because I thought it was another stage. And I realized I could interact with everyone there, and I was like, "Oh, this is fun. This is cute. This is a nice takeaway from having to go and ink literally everything that I see." So I do appreciate that a lot.
I'm glad that I was a little worried that people would not like the breakup in gameplay.
But in the speed run, this is where the game gets a little crazy as well too, because two certain individuals found out that you can skip this whole next level.
Yes.
The reason that's like that is because the scene where the ink falls on the city. Yep. That's not exactly the same room, but it's based on the other room. And so we needed to be able to see to the right of the library tower and to the left of it. And so that's why it's like that.
Interesting. That's why no other levels are connected to each other.
Because you see a bigger portion of the level in that scene.
Right. Huh. Okay. Because, yeah, I remember testing many times trying to, like, pass the second stage and see if I can connect the second stage to the third stage and this and that, whatever. And it was like, none of these stages connect except for 3 and 4. And, yeah. Then at the final screen, you get to see all the ink falling down. I never realized it was more to the right, though, than it was anything else. So, but yeah, Garita found out that you can go from stage 4 back to stage 3 by ink hovering off the top of the steps, and then sent me the video, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." And I sit there and I found out how to ink hover. With pause buffering and to lift Plip up higher. I at first initially did it by hand and got a ton of blisters doing it.
Yeah.
So then I got a program and wrote a script to do it for me, and we found out that at that time we can skip stage 3 completely, but we didn't know how to humanly do it, and then I forgot who they were. Someone came along and figured out how to humanly pause buffer from the platform above the cafe all the way over to the top of that castle. And the moderators and I were just like, no, he had to be using turbo. Like, there's no way. That I sat there and I spent like an hour on that stage. And I finally got it. And I was like, oh, no, this is possible. 100% possible.
There's now a tool, if you press SL and O, or maybe it's just O now, I might have changed it. But it'll bring up a slow everything down tool that you can adjust the frames per second. And I put that in there for you guys to play with.
Ooh, appreciate that.
And there's still some like little you can find that what's his name? Behion, the knight that you can find like in treetops and stuff. He's in every level. Sometimes he's off screen completely, but other times you can find him and he's doing little stuff.
Yeah,
he's on top of the castle.
Yeah,
between stage 3 and 4, right?
Yeah, he's a controller object that
controls animation.
Yeah, he controls animation and he controls like progressing through dialogue, and he also controls like when to mute sound channels and that kind of stuff, along with Muzak, which is the little beatboxing squidlet next to him.
Yep.
Right, I was about to bring them up. I was like, you have another sound controller basically that's kind of off screen most of the times too, that controls basically the tempo and the sync of everything too. So yeah,
Muzak, the beatbox and squidlet off screen controls when to turn off certain sound channels and turn them back on when certain sound effects play.
Hang on, make sure everyone is animated to the beat of the music.
Yeah.
Interesting, because with those two types of sprites, I can't recall seeing them in other games. They're either with that type of sprite, do you have to have a sprite that does that?
No.
If so, do you have to show it, or okay?
No, we just like to put sprites on things so that we can frankly see them in the giant list of things that we like. We could have made an invisible sprite do that.
Yeah.
An invisible object do that, but we just put a sprite on it because it was cute.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
We're not gonna make a sprite for that, but we still like when we're looking in our rooms, we can see like which object to click on, which that controls what, and we can tell that by the whatever sprite we put on it. It's mostly for us.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So yeah, going into stage 3. Stage 3 is, stage 3 is brutal.
Is that the library?
The library. So right away we have to ink. Was it like 8 books?
Yeah.
I'm gonna comment on Plip's jumping right now.
Okay.
So Plip's jumping for the most part is really good until you get to corner jumps.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get to a corner jump, Plip can do a lot of various different things. Typically, most of the times though, Plip will just ink instead of actually jump, and which means that you lose your jump input and you fall down. Or sometimes, if you're lucky, Plip will do what we call a double jump, and literally the frame that you land, like Plip jumps immediately again. So on flat surfaces, Plip's jumping is basically perfect. Corners though, was there challenges with the floor, like the floor plane versus Plip, or like how to? Because like there's definitely and I know we've talked about this in our Discord a few times too, where like, hey, like if we get to a corner, you're just like, yeah, we understand, this, that, whatever. Like, what was the hard part about the landing and the re-jumping again?
So the reason that happens is because there's no coyote time in Squidlit, or there wasn't until until a little bit before the Switch release. So like you might know this, where like most platformers, like I think Mario might have started it. Most platformers, I think after the SNES era, like they would, if you're off a ledge, you can still jump for a frame or two.
Yeah.
And Squidlit didn't have that because you were supposed to be able to fall off a ledge a little bit and then ink something below and then get up to the next ledge with that. And that was going to be used more, but it wasn't really.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes a lot more sense now.
And so now there's either 1 frame or 2 frames of coyote time out of 30 a second. So jumping off an edge happens, like that will happen much less often now.
Gotcha. Because I remember when Garita and I were starting to contend for world record with each other, this stage was always the hindering point for both of us. Like this was the reset point for both of us. Because like we'd hit the edge and it's like, oh, we're going to jump. And all of a sudden we'd ink and fall down. We're like, oh, no. Mm. But the next run we would be able to jump right away without inking. We're just like, I don't get it, So that makes a lot more sense. I didn't understand. I didn't know what the thought was behind, or like if there was like technical issues or how all of that kind of worked in place.
For the most part, that was just like Squidlit trying to so that you could fall off a ledge and then ink. Now it's a little bit harder to fall off a ledge and ink, but you can jump properly after you, or jump what feels like properly but isn't actually properly. Because there is a delay for like either a frame or two for either a computer screen or for human input or something like that by a frame for most video games. And so that coyote time is supposed to help with that. And in terms of like jumping a little bit before you hit the ground, that was just a glitch, and I think it's fixed now. That's one of the main things that separates the current runs of Squidlit from the older runs, is that jumping glitch in Coyote Time. Mm-hmm. And then to like accommodate some of that stuff, we moved Squid Squat over to the left a bit at the final boss, so that the new runs will be slightly faster and like it won't be.
I noticed that on the Switch, yeah. But so in this library, you have to ink. I think it's 8 books.
Yeah.
So the books obviously tie into Grimoire, right? The books are haunted or
they're magic
or possessed for a better word. Yeah, I really like the aesthetic of the library. As much as I despise speedrunning the first part of the stage, I really like the aesthetic of it, because when you first go in, you have like these broken stained glass windows in the background. You have
that's where the muffins came from.
Which makes sense because there's muffins by them.
Yeah, there's always a broken window to the left of a muffin because it's been launched via catapult. And that's why there's a number of them, like...
Oh, that's what that catapult at the start is for.
Yeah.
Oh my god, this is all making sense.
And that's why there's 3 of them outside the castle before you enter it the first time. They've hit the wall and didn't hit a window, so there's a lot more outside the castle than there are like accumulated there because they've just hit the wall.
My god, this is all making sense now. The catapult launches the muffins into the castle for you to infiltrate. Oh my, yep, all right. So we get introduced to, I guess, a new enemy in this one. We have the drop down, I guess, kind of a spider type enemy here, where if you run under it, it drops down and tries to hit you.
It's a copepod.
I'm sorry, I don't know all the sprite.
Oh, sorry, it's copepods are a little, Plankton from SpongeBob.
Yeah.
He's a copepod.
Oh, okay. So inking the books again is almost a challenge in itself too, because some of them are almost the same height as Plip's jump, and you also have a ceiling, so you have to be careful of. And they also move left to right, so a lot of times too, if your timing is off, you can either ink cover over a book and try and get it. Oftentimes you'll get hit, or you just have to sit there and wait for it. Mm-hmm. So you guys did the countdown killing for the garden in stage 1.
Yeah.
Coming into the library, what was your level design thought of doing the library?
So,
like, was it to do another countdown, quote unquote, kill of the books because you knew the final boss was going to be Grimoire, or did it just kind of happen like that?
So like the reason that it's such a maze, at least, is because the original, like, I'm gonna make a video game, and and it was gonna be a Metroidvania, and then I learned that, oh my god, there's a lot of them out there. There's no way that I can possibly like compete with all these amazing Metroidvanias out there. And so it was like, great, well, we're just gonna do a straightforward thing. But I still wanted to have kind of a maze level, and for better or worse, well, gosh darn it, at least one of these levels is gonna be a maze. And in terms of the books,
there is a backstory as to why they exist. And there is a significant backstory for Grimoire that is tied into Squid Squat's backstory. And there is a reason why Grimoire is where they are. And these books, or Grimoire at least, is a sentient creature. But I don't want to spoil too much for Super Squidlit.
That's fair.
We're going to explore that a lot in Super Squidlit.
I like that. Nice. Okay. So, the first time I went into this library, I talked to the eBlood. I was like, oh, okay, I have to defeat books. And even though, like, you didn't go completely through with the Metrovania feel, you definitely get, or like the actual aesthetic of it, you definitely get the Metrovania, yeah, Metroid feeling to the stage itself. Because I remember, like, I got to, like, I had like one book left, and I'm like, where is this final book? And I sat there and I went through all of my little things again, like went through all of the sections. I'm like, I don't see a book anywhere. And it just happened to be like, instead of jumping left and keep going left, you had to jump right across a little bit of a chasm, and it was right there in that little cubby. And I'm just like, oh, it was right there the entire time. But like every time I go through it, even to this date, like I have the stage memorized, it's like I always double think myself. It's like, did I get every book? Because I don't talk to that Ooblock anymore in a speed run. So it's like, did I get every book once I hit that final one by the door? And I'm like, we're gonna find out. And I hit, and I'm like, I luckily got a key. So
most of the books are not, I don't know about most of the books, but either the books are in like a very linear, like you will be able to find them if you just continue around the place, or they are, if they're like behind a maze of some kind that takes some kind of like mental gymnastics and are like, oh my god, how do I get there? They're usually visible from another book's location.
Yeah.
So we tried for that and probably could have done it a bit better.
I liked it. I as annoying as that part of the stage is in a speed run, it's I like it because it gives you a lot more. It basically helps show off, like, hey, how good is your movement in Squidlit? Like, as a speedrunner to that, I appreciate it, because it's like most of the stages, is I can drop off this, I can hop up this, and I basically do that throughout the stages. But however, I go into this first section of the library, and it's nothing but basically steps. And steps are impossible in any video game. So I appreciated that, like, hey, like, I get to put my movement skill to the test now, because this whole game, the whole speed run of Squidlit is movement based. Like, everything is movement based. There's no RNG in the game at all. It's a pure speed run of skill, essentially. So when we get to the library, like, the library is your big separation of your speedrunners. Like, you have the people that, if they've only put, an hour or so into the game, or a few runs into the game, versus the people like Garita, myself, and Nuclear. Like, we've put hours upon hundreds of runs into this game, and you can see where that skill set starts to curve up a bit towards the people that have actually played the game versus the people that are just starting into the game. And it's a really good section of the game too, to really hone in on that skill set too, because even though you don't practice it a lot throughout the stages, a lot of the core concept of jumping off of the edges and inking off of edges and ink hovering over certain things applies to literally every stage of the game. So as annoying as many people find that section to be, I find it to be also annoying, but it's the part of the run that really tests how well you know the game. So, I as much as it annoys me, I also appreciate it at the same time.
We weren't thinking of speed runs at all while we were designing.
No,
Squidlit.
and you honestly shouldn't be. Like, as a speedrunner in itself, like, I've had devs like ask me, and like, I mean, communities, and devs ask communities like, hey, should we cater this game to a speedrunner? And we're like, no, make it to what you want it to be. Like, this is your game. This is not our game. This is your game. If we're going to play it, if we choose to play it, like, we're probably going to break parts of it, and we're going to complain about parts of it. But in the end, like, this is your this is your baby. Like you do what you want to do with it. So
I'm glad we're on the right track for Super Squidlit then.
Yeah.
The only thing for Super Squidlit is we have you can't just mash A through the most dialogues because Plip has a lot more like dialogue choices now.
Oh yeah.
ooh.
So that's the only thing we're like, oh yeah, we'll get the speedrunners with this. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah. Now there's choices for Plip where you have to choose like up or down.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
too.
It's not just left and right.
Oh man.
That just let us
Shin-chan.
put more space on what he says.
Yeah.
That was the main reason for that. But yeah, now you got to press up and down too.
It's Shin-chan all over again. But once you get out of the first part of the library, it's not all too bad. It's still a bit of a jump festival, so to speak, because the next section is there's a lot of basically chasms or pits, so to speak. Not deadly pits, but just pits that you have to jump or ink over. And again, depending on your timing, like you're going to get hurt, or you're going to fall into a pit and maybe get hurt, or you're going to fall into a pit and have to backtrack a little bit to get out of. The library as a whole is a beast in itself. But my only question to the second part is, how do the muffins get behind the door?
So you know how Grimoire, those aren't doors, those are covers of books. You know how Grimoire summons things?
Yes.
Those are tiny books that are summoning muffins.
Gotcha. Okay.
So like you open one of the books and it summons a muffin
Yeah.
because it's like a cookbook or something.
Yeah.
It was like that little muffin sprite too on the cover is adorable, and I'm like, oh, a muffin door, boop, and a muffin pops out, and I'm like, this is cute. So I always open up all the muffin doors or muffin books now. That every time I see them, muffin book, just open them.
And the books are chained to the shelves because I don't like I had at the time recently learned about chained libraries, which were like kind of a medieval thing where books were so expensive that if you were to go to a library you couldn't like walk out with the book, like, right, so they would be chained to the shelves, and it's like, well, what if the books are chained to the shelves because they're dangerous?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Huh. Yeah. It's wow. All right. I love all this inner, like, behind the scenes stuff. It's so interesting to hear like the thought process behind all of this. So I'm not going to call it a weird thing, but one thing that I noticed is towards the end of the second section, if you fall down, you fall straight down, don't touch any of the platforms on the left or right, you'll get hit by a ghoul. And you have the iframes to literally walk through the next two enemies without being hit. This is towards the end of the stage.
I think I know what you're talking about.
I'm assuming not intentional, because like so, like you have two drop-offs, two big drop-offs in this section. The first one is you drop off and then you run left, and you come across a big pit that you basically can hover over. Then you come up to another drop-off again where you fall down and you get hit by a ghoul on the way down. And then you go right instead of left, and you can actually just walk through the two enemies. So, it always lines up perfect every time. Like, even I played it casually, it just lined up perfect every time. So I wasn't sure if it was intentional to do that or if it just happened to happen like that.
No, it's not intentional.
No.
And then at the very end, you get to open up a bunch of muffin books, which is really fun.
In preparation for Grimoire.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you go to the Grimoire fight, which is a really complex fight. Like, honestly, it really is, because Plip falls down, falls into the book, and then gets shot right back out. And
that
then
was
Grimoire
to show like how people like, because we did a lot of playtesting in our local library with some students, teenagers.
Yeah, from high school next door.
Yeah, and they weren't entirely sure what to do with the book. That they didn't know that you were supposed to jump in. So that's there to show that you can go in the book.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's cool. I didn't know you all did external playtesting, so to speak.
Oh, we did. Yes.
Yeah.
Nice. So you go into this book and get shot out, and then Grimoire hangs out in the corner, and then opens the book, basically. Like, it opens itself up. But it also does like the animations are also different that come out of the book. So the animations could be bees, bombs, sword, and a wand.
Mm-hmm.
And these outlines are basically the spell that Grimoire is about to cast if it's not inked inside of the book. This part seemed actually pretty hard to design and program because it's not just a static screen. Like, it actually scrolls to the left and to the right when you have to get to the sword and to the wand as well too. Not only that is that you can ink all of this stuff. Once you've inked something 4 times, the book closes. But you can ink all this stuff 3 times and still remain in the book until you ink something a 4th time. Like, how hard was that to save the quote unquote inking progress that Plip did inside of the book? B, like, basically show off the animation of what was going to be cast, and then have the player basically cover that spell in the book, and then see just like the actual dynamic of the actual scene itself, where everything is written out of sword, bomb, bee, and wand, and having to scroll from side to side.
It was a nightmare. The scrolling wasn't so bad. So like you have the normal camera for all of that section. You're just stuck in the upper left-hand corner of the room for the first part, so the camera doesn't follow you. So the camera wasn't too bad. But like just Grimoire checking to see which parts of it are inked or not inked, and then whether or not to summon something, make sure not to summon 2 things, and make sure not to.
So like each of those like dictionary like entries in Grimoire is a separate object, and they have an inked value.
Yeah.
And if the inked value is 4, then Grimoire knows that it cannot summon that particular thing. So like Grimoire will check between like 1 and 4 when it's going to summon an attack. And when it does that, it calls upon the number it chose. And it essentially asks, do you have an ink value of 4? And if that thing says no, then he does that attack. If it does, then he chooses another attack.
And it sounds simple in theory, but like the number of bugs, like this only was working like 2 weeks before we released. Like It was horrible. It took months. It was the reason that Squidlit is so short.
Yes.
It seemed really hard because like on the server, people like on the server like, oh, I get to go inside this book and do this, but like I do coding as my main job too, and like just looking at it, it's like I have to go into a completely different screen essentially, and all of these values have to basically be saved, buffered, and then calculated again on its next attack. Like, this doesn't seem like an easy thing to do, at least restricting yourself to a Game Boy hardware limitation. So
it's actually all the same room.
Yeah.
And what's going on is that when Plip touches Grimoire while they're open, it changes Plip's X and Y coordinate to the part of the room where the open book is.
Yeah, it just teleports her.
And it just teleports you to a different section of the room, and then teleports you back after you ink something the 4th time.
Gotcha. Okay.
And the bees are always up there. Like, they're just always off screen, just kind of hanging out.
Yeah.
And they just activate. And then those are the same, like each line of bee, that's the same bee. It just teleports back up and keeps on going. And then it eventually just gets tired of doing that and sticks at the top permanently.
Gotcha. And this is the only boss in the game that has 2 phases. It has an extra phase to the fight. So once you've defeated the 4 spells inside of the book, Grimoire is going to swoop and dive at you like Krakow does in Kirby's Dream Land.
It is like Krakow, yes.
It is. Yes, it is.
But
Spending
it
thousands
needs to get
of
under
hours
you
in
in
that
order
game.
to in order for you to ink, because you can only attack downwards. So I'm like, okay, so we have to attack it somehow. So downwards is the only option.
Yeah, having to spend thousands of hours in Kirby's Dream Land. Yep. I can. So it swoops at you like Krakow. And that's fine, and dandy, but you can also hit it when it's up in the corner on its little ribbon.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I know Garita and I found that a couple months ago, where if you just jump up and ink the bottom part of the ribbon, it counts as the hitbox of Grimoire, and we can actually do what we call a fast kill on Grimoire now.
And that's because Grimoire doesn't hurt you unless it has like a sword or something out. And even if it has a sword out, the book itself doesn't hurt you. We wanted it to like hit you with weapons instead of be hostile itself.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So with the hitbox too for the book, so like typically like your hitboxes are squares or rectangles. With Grimoire, like when it comes down, it's just like a big square, then just a little rectangle that comes down for the ribbon. Or how did that end up being the way that it is?
I think it is just a single square. First of all,
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly
Okay.
like anymore what the square is actually shaped like. A lot of the squares for stuff like that is not necessarily the same size as the boss itself.
Yeah.
Just kind of like, because then you could hit it like in between the pages or whatever. But I know it's just a single square. I could look it up at some point if you're curious.
Gotcha. No, I was the more curious part was just like more so for Greta and I, like, why didn't we figure out to ink the ribbon beforehand? And why did it take us a year to figure out to ink the ribbon before anything else? But it's just an interesting factor that ribbon is like just low enough for Plip to hit it.
Yes.
And the ending too, like the ending is really dramatic for the book too, because like it basically catches fire and crashes to the ground.
Yeah.
Like it's really dramatic. Like there's so much to that boss fight. There's just so many like animations and fighting. Like there's just it's my favorite boss fight in the game.
Oh yay.
Um,
That's good. It took the longest.
Yeah.
yeah,
Better be.
I figured it did. And then at the end, you get this Oobleck that comes out and talks to you. And you're just like, oh, I didn't expect a little cutscene afterwards either. I don't remember what the Oobleck says anymore, but...
On that area, the same room where you find Riverjack, Artemis is all like, we gotta go to the library and like find the book that contains all the information in Squid Squat's kingdom. And so he meets you again in the library after you found it.
And he reads the book and discovers the spell that Squid Squat's using inside the book and how to thwart it.
It's conveniently ink. You can ink.
Conveniently. And then a door magically happens. Like, how does the door magically appear?
Artemis has a little, like, he has a really quick animation where he does, like, a cast a spell thing, and he just kind of the door.
Yeah. He just kind of blows a hole in the wall.
Yeah, that's a hole in the wall.
And then we leave there. Then we get a cutscene with Squisquat talking to the knight, and I believe it's the first time we get to see the Squisquat as well too.
Mm-hmm.
So now we get to see the God Emperor herself. So again, we get to climb steps. Every person's favorite thing to do in a video game.
Who says a joke about it this time?
Yeah.
And then we get to come across Artemis sleeping on the steps, and it is the cutest sprite ever.
He's supposed to be exhausted. Like, oh man, how do you're jumping the whole way? How are you jumping the stairs?
Yeah.
What do they feed you? And the answer is muffins.
Yeah.
It's so cute because it's just like this pile of Oobleck just like sitting there, just taking a quick nap before it finishes its adventure to the castle.
Yeah. And that's the last time you see Artemis. He's stopped by the guard at the gate.
Yeah.
He's actually probably arrested at that point again.
Yeah, he's probably just arrested again.
Yeah.
So then you go to the guard, and then it asks you, "Are you a Squidlit?" And then you have two answers. You can say yes
With a question mark.
with a question mark, or what's the other one? Maybe, I think it is, or
Yeah.
no.
Oh, no with a question mark and maybe with 3 dots.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you
Maybe.
did, and if you say maybe ... the guard actually hits you
Yeah.
Yeah.
and does damage to you. And then, but if you choose no question mark, the guard's like, oh, okay, and you just walk right in.
Yeah.
They don't see many squidlets in town because Pyrethrin's anti-squidlet spray is pretty effective, especially since he keeps like testing and making new versions.
And then you enter the final stage, and the final stage is not really maze-like, but definitely, again, has almost a Metroidvania feel to it a little bit, just because of the actual design of the stage. Because you're going right, and then you get to encounter the slime sprites.
Oh, and I'd like to say that those are I made a mistake with drawing those, and they're actually the only creature that's not in 3/4 perspective where you can see both the eyes. They have 2 eyes. I've seen them be called eyeball creatures at points, and they have 2 eyeballs.
Yeah. They are
can't-
homunculuses.
Homunculuses, yes.
Yeah, they're like a homunculus creature created by Squid Squad.
Yeah, from her cauldron.
Gotcha. I always call them slime boys.
Slam boys, you can call them that.
That's a good name.
But it's the first time you get to see them as well too.
And the last.
And the last. So yeah, we're in the final stage now, but it's designed in a way that when you go right, you have to go up and over this mound and then down and up and to the right, and then there's like a little cavern to the side. They're like, oh, what's in that little cavern? Oh, it's a muffin. You can get a muffin, then you have to climb up this treacherous like hill thing again. And then now all of a sudden there's a button at the bottom and I don't know what to do with it type deal, right? Like your first time playing, like, I'm going to stand on this button. Oh, the door opens. How do I get up? And I jump off the button and the door closes. Oh, okay, so I need something on this button. Typical video game logic is I need to find a box to push onto this button. Not in the case of Squidlit. Squidlit, you need the slime boy to follow you to the button.
Yeah, they're nice.
The first button that you come across, though, is you have two ghouls that fly across the screen. One above the floor plane, and one, I don't know if it's still in the game or not, that flies in the floor plane. I haven't seen the one that flies into the floor plane for a while, so I don't know if you all got rid of that in a patch.
I don't think the first button had that. There were other buttons that had one that was in the floor, and that was removed because sometimes you would fall on it at the wrong time, and it would
fall into the floor.
Yeah, and I think it was almost impossible to get that one to hurt you anyway, if I remember right. So it was just simply removed.
Gotcha. Okay.
And the reason that there's muffins in there's actually no windows because Squid Squat and the sunlight don't actually get along that well. Which is why you see her outside during the night only. And but she does really like Squidlit muffins, so if she finds any, she will take them and hide them away in cubby holes in her lab.
Yeah.
That explains why she takes a whole muffin when she touches you.
Yeah, and she eats it too because she likes them.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just like,
So-
what's behind your ear? It's a muffin.
So once you get the slimy boy onto the button, the door opens, you climb up, and then now you have the plankton that falls down from the ceiling. Before we used to be able to ink it through the floor. Can't do that anymore now. So
That's actually unintentional side effect of fixing the way the ink works. I really miss that glitch. I kind of want to patch it back in at some point.
it's fun to see because you just don't think that you could do that, and also you just ink right there, and the thing just drops onto the button, and you're done.
Yeah.
But then you have to go around, and then you have to have the plankton fall, and then you have to do like a C jump, and then ink the plankton onto the button, and then you have to have the slimy boy again follow you to a third button.
Oh, can I give a fun fact about that?
Yes.
Okay, so there's an invisible bowl of petunias that is on those steps before you get to those really, really tall steps, so you're forced to touch it. And once you touch it, it takes the 2 doors from before in the level and teleports them in front of you. And so those are actually the exact same 2 doors that you were opening earlier.
Huh.
And that's because we didn't want to have to like give them individual identifiers and make more objects that are different but do the exact same thing. And so like because otherwise if you would touch those buttons it would have opened like every door in the room. And so yeah, and if you actually go backwards from that point, not that I have any reason you have any reason to, you would actually, those doors are no longer there and the buttons are missing too.
Yeah.
Because they've teleported in front of you.
Interesting. So you're saying if we just completely skip those steps by not touching the ground?
Yeah. By like ink hovering above those steps before the before you meet that that homunculus that's supposed to help you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that is terribly difficult.
Yeah, it would be really hard. That's quite the hefty high jump.
Mm-hmm.
But
pull out the scripting program again.
And the music even stops at one point, so you can hear it happen. Like there's a little break in the beat of the music because that's where the explosion comes from, or that's where the door opening comes from.
Oh.
And so there's a little tick in the music when you touch that bowl of petunias.
Huh. I'm gonna have to listen to this now. I did not notice that at all.
Oh, that's good.
Wow, that is a fun fact. And the other thing is the crystals that shoot lightning between them. I called them pencils the first time I ever encountered them.
They do look like pencils.
Yeah.
And what's interesting with these is that like even though they're not enemies per se, they're still interactable where you can actually ink the bottom crystal and it's not conductive to electricity anymore.
Yeah, and that's like there's other you can do the same thing to the electric crystal rods that the Ublug dragoons throw down on you and attract lightning.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of a reference to that. So like every time you encounter these crystals, if they're conducting electricity, you can ink on them.
Gotcha.
And they're also there's also crystal lampposts in the Ublug town you like so much.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there is. I didn't even think about inking it.
Oh, you can't ink them.
Yeah. They got little hats on top.
Yeah, they got little hats. That's why they got little hats.
And then the magical ball right before Squid's room.
Yes.
Oh, yes. That actually wasn't in the original release. We were going to put it somewhere else, but it would have been too many sprites per line in Squid's dungeon, Squid's final boss room. So we were like, oh, where do we put it? It's like, right outside. There we go.
Yeah.
It's fun because like when I first came across it, I found it, and I was like, oh, it's this piece of the background, and I jumped on it and inked it, and it made a noise. I was like, oh, there's something to this. And I thought real deep into this magical ball. And I was like, oh, there's something to it because, like, why am I able to interact with something? And then I think I spent the next 20 minutes just, like, playing around with this magical ball. And, like, nothing ever happened.
That's good. You were supposed to be, like, a little significant because you could ink on it. Now you can talk to it, and it will say, like you see something falling from the sky, but it's probably, you can't really make it out, so it's probably a load of hooey.
Yeah.
And the little animation in the middle of it is the meteor from the after the end screen.
Oh, okay.
That little after the end. That's what you see in the crystal ball.
I didn't even notice that either. Well, I'm going to replay this one
for the next game.
Oh, yes.
Bum, 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 bum. And then we go against Squid. And Squid on the surface, like I said, seemed like an easy fight, but it's actually a lot to it because you have Plip and Squid on the same lines already, plus the cauldron that you have to ink, and that every time that you ink the cauldron, it shoots Plip one way or another.
Yeah.
If you're a casual player of it, like you're obviously not taking the damage boost by the laser beams or running through the body, so you have to wait for Squid to completely come to one side and shoot a laser, and then basically run down the bottom of the basement, basically, past a slimy boy, because you put an obstacle down there that caught me off guard a couple times.
Yeah, like it was kind of boring without the little slimy boy, and like the slimes are also like immortal, so it'll continue to be a little obstacle down there even if you defeat it.
Yeah.
And then you run to the other side, and the cauldron is Squisquat's like, what? Wait, how'd you get over there? And it runs back over, then shoots a laser beam. Then you do the same thing, rinse and repeat to both sides. This probably was a seemingly difficult fight to program as well too. More so because of the feedback once you've inked the cauldron, and all the animations kind of sharing one unified area.
The hardest part of that one was definitely the throwback once you the explosion once you hit the thing, because you need it, because otherwise Squid will catch you and she will take your muffins. And but like you go so fast that the collision code just didn't work, so we had to like make new collision code simply for that one instance.
Yeah. And
I believe you guys early on were finding issues with it, where you could get stuck in the wall.
Yeah.
The feedback is fast. Like the feedback is fast and it's forceful.
Yeah.
So it just kind of throws you into the wall. So Squisquat has laser beams.
Oh yes.
Why laser beams?
She could shoot laser. The laser beams from her eye are actually like little stun beams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's not actually trying to like hurt you badly. She's just trying to like shoo like she sees you as equivalent of like a mouse.
Like a pet.
She doesn't want to like kill you or something. She's just trying to get you to leave.
Yeah. And
Gotcha.
Like stun you so that she can put you in her catapult.
Yeah.
It launch you back out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what that's for. And in case a Squidlit comes in, she just has a catapult for them.
She just stuns them and then like puts them in the catapult and launches them away.
Yeah. Let's see. What was the question again? Oh, why laser beams?
Yeah.
She's got these big ol' eyes, and you know what big ol' eyes do in video games? They shoot laser
yeah.
beams.
Yeah.
And her eyes get smaller until they get small enough to the point where it's the same size as the laser beam. That's like essentially her closing her eyes. She can animate those, like eyelids.
Gotcha. Because when I first played this game, not knowing any of the character names at all, I called the final boss Zorak. If you ever watched Space Ghost, way back in the day.
Yeah.
So Zorak in Space Ghost also shot lasers from his eyes. So
Oh, really? That's why
Yes.
people call her Zorak.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Huh. She's also a bug.
Yeah, she's
And
a
it's
moth.
also
She's a dire moth.
Yes.
There's no like the world of Squidlit is named Squishu, and there's not a single vertebrate that is native to Squishu. If there's a vertebrate or something that is like half vertebrate or resembles a vertebrate, it's like it's from somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So Squisquat has two endings. Once you've inked her cauldron,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you have an ending to hug Squisquat.
Oh, yes.
Which says, "Tear, thank you, I needed that," to a degree, or
She's had a hard day.
it's a hey, take that sucker, and then Squisquat gets angry and grabs you by the neck and throws you into the catapult.
Yeah.
Was there a reason to have two different endings? Because I know everyone leans to the hugging ending, even in a speed run, because even though it is quote unquote slower in the speed run, most of us cater to the hugging ending more than the other one.
Yeah.
That's actually, like when one of my first games ever was, in fact, like my first console games ever was Kirby's Dream Land. Before that, it was all like Humongous Entertainment and Reader Rabbit and stuff like that. But when I made like Defeated Wispy Woods, I made Wispy Woods cry, and I felt horrible. And so like I would go up next to Wispy Woods and press down and like to just kind of like rub my Kirby against the Wispy Woods as a hug. And so I was like, I need to be able to hug.
Yeah.
Man, we have two different feelings for Wispy Woods.
And also, Squid Squad is very much like Sam's character and very influenced by like Sam being silly and stuff.
Squid Squat is based off of an old D&D character of mine.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
she's very near and dear to my heart, and it makes me smile a lot to see so many people like to give her a hug after her hard day of being a boss. And
Because she's trying to prevent a great bad
yes,
thing.
she's actually she has a very good reason for casting this spell, and it is the crux of the adventure for Super Squidlit.
Gotcha. I figured as much.
Oh yeah. And
Once you told us there was another Squidlit project in the works, I was like, okay, one of these endings are canon.
oh, the hug.
Oh yeah,
So,
the hug is
yeah.
canon. Yeah.
So that makes... So I kind of tied 2 and 2 together with that one, where it's like, okay, they just told us that there's going to be a sequel. This is probably the ending that they wanted us to do. So... And then, Squid Squad launches Plip back into... it's Plipston, right? That's the name of the town.
Blipston with a B.
Blipston.
Yeah.
And you get the fun part about that is the credits, because the credits it's raining ink as well too. And while you can control Plip in the credits, and if you don't get inked on at all, when Plip lands on the ground, you get a great job.
Yeah.
And it makes a nice fanfare tune. But if you get inked, and if you get and if you get inked once, or wherever it is, when Plip lands, it leaves this ink spot on the ground, and it just says "good job," I think it is, and you just hear a blip, and it bounces
you don't get
right
anything
back into
then.
Blipston. Yeah.
Get good, scrub. That's actually the splatting yourself on the ground and getting clean. That's actually so that the last area of like the little the end scene can have Plip, only one sprite for Plip, and it doesn't have to have every color for Plip.
Yeah.
So you just kind of hit the ground and get clean. And that where you land is actually a perfect recreation of the level right after Blipston, like a certain part of that level.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah, so it's canonically like a space that you've been to.
I figured it was. I figured it was somewhere outside of the castle, but I couldn't picture where it was. I assumed it was on that pedestal that I kept getting stuck on, so...
I think it's where you fight the second Unt snail. Could be wrong about that, though.
Trying to remember the first stage in my head. Okay, yeah, right there. After you encounter the first Ooblug.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Fun game, though. Really fun game.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
From knowing that you two were going to develop this game to launch, how long did that take?
A year.
Yeah.
A year.
Well, from knowing that we were going to develop it, I don't know, but like actual development took a year.
Yeah.
And that's mostly due to inexperience.
Sure. When you were developing the game, did you expect it to go on to Steam or itch.io or GOG or anything of that sort at all, or was it just kind of just like a dream of like, I'm gonna make this game and maybe some people would want to play it on the internet?
At first, like, it was just I'm gonna make Sam happy by making this game, and it's gonna be cute and it's gonna make her laugh. And
it was a project for Alex to learn how game design is done and how to do it herself. And
Gotcha.
After a while, I started pushing her to like take the project farther.
Yeah.
And to develop it more and to make it larger. And when it started to get to the size that it is now, I started to try and help out, like figuring out how we could publish this on Steam and stuff, because I saw that it's actually a really nice little game, and it deserves to have its tiny little fraction of the spotlight. And so we put it on Steam, and here we are today.
Because when I first watched Moelle play Squidlit, it was very early on. It was months before I even got into the community. And I watched him play it, and he was like, "Oh, it's a cool game, fun game." It was, it was Game Boy themed. That's why he played it mainly. And then SprintingLegs bought the game, picked it up, and started running it. And I was kind of in a limbo because I literally just finished Kirby's Dream Land. Like, I just got the record in extra mode, this and that, whatever. And I was like, I'm in a limbo of games. Like, I don't want to do.
You had the
I don't want to go
record?
back. I had it for a while.
Oh,
yeah.
dude, that's really cool. Congrats.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I was like, well, I've literally spent 3 years of my speedrunning career into Kirby's Dream Land. Like, I'm like, there's nothing more for me to really add to this game. And like, I found a lot of things that people thought that were tasks only that I figured out how to do as a human, and this and that, whatever. Like, I have nothing left to give to this game. And I'm like, I don't want to go out and do my previous games because I just don't find them as fun. And I'm like, I'm having a hard time finding a new game. So she was just like, hey, try Squidlit. And I was like, okay. So bought the game. Like, it's what, like $2 on Steam, wherever it is.
It was 3.
Bought the game. Yeah. 3. So bought the game, played it. And I was like, oh, it's a neat game. Pretty short. I think blinded took me 15 or 20 minutes. So I was like, all right, yeah. So I threw a couple runs at, like, nothing serious at all. And I got down to like a 10-minute time. And I'm like, all right, that's probably good enough. And then took another like long speedrun limbo to, again, just like I don't know what to do. And then Legs was just like, hey, like, you like breaking games. Let's go back to Squidlit. I was like, oh, I'm like, fine. Because at the time, like, Squidlit community was it was like Garita, Nora, Graham, kind of myself, and Legs, basically. Like, it was like 5 of us. Yeah. So there was no tasking, like, there was no glitch hunting, there was like none of that happening with Squidlit. And I was like, all right, sure, I'll do what I can. So I got that program and started scripting a bunch of inputs for Squidlit just to see what would happen and how things worked and hitboxes and mechanics. And I got really, really interested in the game just based off of that. And then when Garita showed me that stages 3 or 4 are connected, then I really got excited because like, I can skip a complete level now. And like, how do we do this? Like, where do we do this? And then basically from glitch hunting Squidlit, I got really, really into the speedrun of Squidlit. And then basically the rest is history. I soaked in, how many hours do I have into Squidlit right now?
Oh dear.
Oh goodness.
Uh-oh.
Scrolling through my Steam library. I know it's over 20.
Like, some people have asked me, like, oh, how do you feel about all these speedrunners, like, taking your game and breaking them over the knee? I'm like, they are getting so much playtime out of this tiny little itty-bitty game. Like,
oh, yeah.
I am just over the moon how happy I am that people are playing it more than once.
Yeah.
A 10-minute speedrun, I have 24 hours into this game. So, Man Over Mars has 13 hours into this game. SprintingLegs has 11. And Moelle has 48 minutes, so...
I know Nuclear has something ridiculous.
I bet Nuclear has something insane as well, too.
Yeah.
Someone has played it for 300 hours.
I think that's Nuclear.
What? That's
Yeah.
probably Nuclear.
Yes. They left a review of it's good, and it has like 300 hours.
It's alright, 300 hours. but that's what really pulled me in was the glitch hunting, and then once I got in, Greta and I, became really good friends, and then got into like helping each other. Like, hey, like what if we did this? What if we did this? And that's my favorite part of speedrunning community is not so much like the speedrunning of the game, it's the what if we did this and like the collaboration of the runners together. And then Nora kind of came back into the picture and then made a really nice tutorial of the game, and a nice like speedrunning tutorial as well. The Nuclear came across and then someone posted on Reddit for like a speedrun weekly type thing, and then we got more people involved, and then with more people involved, more eyeballs, like more things were found, like the Squish Squat kills at the end now.
Yeah, there's so many different kinds of that.
Yeah, there's just so much happening now with so many different eyeballs, and that to me, like that's the fun part of speedrunning. It's not so much like getting the world record and getting a sweet time. It's the, hey, what if you did this and this and this? Like, what is the outcome? Like, it could be absolutely nothing, but if you spent an hour, maybe it's game breaking. Maybe it's something we've never seen before, or maybe it's a glitch and Sam and Alex are going to patch it next time they update the game, So, and that's what really pulled me into the Squidlit community. And then just seeing like how just nice people are is what really probably what kept me around, because like I've been in communities where like people are just not appreciative, just pretty much jerks. And I just sit there and I'm like, I don't want to be a part of this community at all. And I'll either put the Discord on mute or I'll just leave the server. But our Squidlit Discord, everyone is super nice, really helpful. Even the new people coming in are just excited. Like we have people running Squid %, which that hasn't seen runs in 2 years, and it's like now all of a sudden like it's becoming a hot thing, and it's like, oh, this is cool. And then we have our first 100% run, and it's like, wow. Okay, it's like there's a lot of action happening with Squidlit right now from these new people, and like these new people are finding cool little like jumping maneuvers and whatnot. Like I forgot who they were now. Tengun.
Yeah.
That person is Tegron. That person is phenomenal at double jumping off of edges. Just phenomenal at it. So good. So it's fun to watch like the different like skill sets of people. And it's fun to watch them like gain their skill sets too, because like I remember like watching Garita and I play. Like our skill set is decent, and then like after Nuclear came in and found a bunch of stuff, it's like we now compare that to Nuclear, and it's like, oh, okay, we can improve here, here, and here, and here. So we sit there and practice there, and there. Thankfully to the update that allows us to restart the level now. So there's just so much to the game, and we appreciate you guys listening to us. It's like, hey, like there's a glitch here. Did you guys know about this? Or hey, I came across this problem. Or hey, have you thought about putting in restarting stages or restarting the game option in the pause menu?
That's in there for you guys.
So like it's we all of us appreciate it, because like there's a lot of times too, like I'm in some Discord servers where the devs are there, and the devs just don't talk at all. Like they'll sit there and they'll just read the glitches that we post, and then they'll go in and fix them, and that's it. Like they just fix the glitches. We're just like, oh, all right, well I guess we're gonna run on an older patch now, because we don't want to. We try
not to fix glitches that will interfere with the run.
Yeah.
So. And that you all are actually interactable with us. Like, you guys actually interact with the community, again, is something we all love. Like, all of us love talking to you in the Discord.
Oh, hooray.
Whether it's this random conversation of, hey, how are you doing today, to, hey, where are we at with Super Squidlit type deals, So, super appreciate.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
We should talk about that.
Oh, yeah.
It's like all we do, so like it's all we have on our minds. So sorry if we mention it too much without saying anything, but we're just like, that's like
no,
all
you're
we do.
good.
Yeah.
So we're gonna take another quick break. We'll do our normal closing stuff and see what else Sam and Alex have on their plate. Stay tuned. welcome back, everybody. So, Squidlit, we've talked a lot about Squidlit already. So we've briefed upon Super Squidlit here and there. Is there any more that you guys want to say about Super Squidlit?
What are your questions? Like, if you ask something that we're like, we're not gonna say, we'll just say we're not gonna say.
Yeah.
Perfect. You say Artemis is a playable character.
Yes.
Yes.
He's kind of early in development right now, but
Yeah.
but we have the 2-player system working.
Yeah.
So Artemis is going to be like a player too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hop
Okay.
in, hop out. Drop in.
Is it going to be like arcade style where they're going to just share one screen?
No, I actually worked for quite a while on developing a system where Game Maker actually will spawn a second screen on the monitor and recalculates everything, and so the player 2 has their own screen, and it's a split screen.
It's another Game Boy.
Yeah, so it's canonically just
nice.
another Game Boy with a link cable, but
Because if I play Titus the Fox, if you ever played Titus the Fox 2-player,
No.
Titus, you haven't?
Nah. I didn't know
So
it was 2-player.
Yeah. So it's interesting how it does its 2-player, because typically a Game Boy does exactly that, where they split the screens out. But in 2-player Titus the Fox, you can see everything shares one screen. So there's 2 Titus the Foxes on the screen.
Uh-huh.
One is a lighter color than the other, and they all interact and do everything together. So it's actually a really interesting co-op playthrough. I did it by myself because I don't have any friends. So no one. Well, none of my like real life friends care about this stuff at all. Like, they don't care about retro gaming. They're more into like the battle royales and the League of Legends and stuff.
gotcha.
So, and I'm the oddball that sits here and plays games like as if I was in the 90s still. So, I emulated Titus the Fox and pulled up a 2-player game because like there's no recording of 2-player Titus the Fox at all. No one has ever seen it apparently. Like, there's just no reviews about it. So I'm like, oh, well, I can emulate this.
Thank you
easily.
for forging a new like thing, because like when I look up video games online, I'm always like trying to look up little things, and sometimes there's just nothing on a game, and
a lot of that
or a version, and so thank you for contributing to that.
Yeah, definitely.
So I got it working. I was like, oh, this is really cool. And like I showed Legs. I'm like, Legs, like we could speedrun this together. Like we could get 2-player world record in this easily. Like you don't even need to know the run. So
Neat.
yeah, so it was really cool to find. The hardest part, honestly, with some of this stuff is like there's a lot of videos for like known games like Super Mario, Zelda, all of those. But like when you get into games like Prophecy Viking Child or Chuck Rock on Game Boy,
I know Chuck
Lemmings 2, like those types of games, like those games are, if you can find a video, great. And then sometimes like there's just no game facts for them. There's no manual scans for them. Like there's just nothing for them. The biggest one that we came across was Swamp Thing. So Swamp Thing on Game Boy is there was no video about how to play the game. There was no videos of the game, actually. There's no game facts of the game at all. No scanned manual. And Mo and I sat there for hours figuring out how to play the game. We couldn't beat that. We could finish the first stage, but we would die instantly in the second stage.
I wonder if there are games out there on like major consoles that no one has beaten.
I don't know.
Because like
Maybe.
like there's some really hard like well-known games out there, but like imagine if they weren't well-known and they were still that hard. I wonder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's kind of what we hope to find in the Game Boy, like with Mo and I. Like Mo has done 300 some odd games on the Game Boy now.
Awesome.
Like Grunt and Hero and I are in the 230 range now, so we've come across a few games that are not as well known, but are really hard. And we've come across some games that are not well known at all and just super easy. Really should have even been a game, you know. So it's a fun challenge. The hardest thing right now, but like going back to Swamp Thing, is like there was none of this. So like Mo and I had to figure out how to play the game, and I gave up because like I don't have time to deal with this anymore. I have other things I need to get done. And then Mo eventually found out with various weird button combinations that you could do certain things and attack certain ways. And it's how you get health back and save the environment and whatnot. But it took him hours to figure this out. And then once he figured it out, he beat the game in 20 minutes. And he posted a video like, hey, this is how to play Swamp Thing. And then he had an intro of it, like, these are the controls, this is how to play it. And then he played through the game and beat it. And I was just like, wow, I'm really glad that we have to do this now. So, Mo and I have definitely gotten to the point where we've had to do that with a few games now. I've had to do it with all of the Wisdom Tree games, so all of the Bible games for the Game Boy. There is just like there's videos out there, but they're videos of like making fun of how bad the games are. They're not like informative, like how to play the game videos.
Yeah.
I'm in the process of not so much like the gameplay of it, but I'm in the process of like physical restorations. Like I have, like I said, 3 boxes of manuals that I have to still scan through. I have 5 issues of Game Boy comic books that I have to scan through still. You know, labels and boxes, and like I'm into more of like the physical preservation of a game than say like the actual gameplay of it. And more Legs and Mo are more into like the gameplay like aspect of sharing and preserving. So like Legs can ROM dump now from physical cards to save the ROM files. You know, and Mo just goes through and plays all the games that we can, you know, that we language barrier can, because there's a lot of Japanese games that we can't play because we don't know Japanese. So, but it's a challenge. It's fun. It's a lot of time, but it's a good time. So a Super Squidlit, Squid Squat, are they evil or friendly?
Squid Squad.
Squid Squad is not evil.
Squid Squad is not evil.
Okay.
Squid Squad's not exactly friendly either.
She is going to be playable in Super Squidlit.
Ooh.
And at the beginning, Squid Squad is definitely going to be very indifferent at best to Plip.
Yeah.
Because she sees Plip as a pest that kind of ruined her plan to protect Squishu from this great evil. And is like, you're going to help me because you broke this. And kind of gets this whole adventure going. And their relationship will evolve over the adventure, but it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Squid Squad has a lot of dialogue.
Yeah, Squid Squad has a ton of dialogue. I had to make special folders to hold all of the Squid Squad NPCs because there's so many of them.
So with Squidlit having kind of 3 different genres mixed into it. You have platforming, you have a shoot 'em up, and a little bit of a Metroidvania. Do we expect the same with Super Squidlit?
Yes.
We have all of those, and we're also adding FPS to the mix.
Yeah.
First-person shooter.
Yes.
Oh man, that's gonna be fantastic.
We're taking a page from id's book and doing a raycasting.
Yeah. So it's gonna resemble more closely Faceball.
Yeah.
Legs is gonna love you guys.
Oh yeah. First-person shooters is actually one of my favorite genre. I just don't like military first-person shooters.
Yeah.
Like my favorite FPS is Marathon, and I've actually only recently been playing Doom for the first time.
I've been
so good.
loving Doom 2016.
Oh yes, that's very good.
That's a really good one.
Oh yes. And but Squid Squat's a mage. She's gonna have a lot of spells.
Yeah.
she might have Plip help her a little bit.
We have a very funny animation for Flip helping out Squid Squad.
Yeah. And there's also an we went too crazy with this, we have definitely bitten off more than we can chew, but we're gonna do it. Yeah. There's an RPG system for Squid Squad spells.
Yeah, like leveling up and unlocking new spells, or increasing the ranks, increasing like HP and
Or
mana
stats.
regeneration. Yeah. Stats.
So this is going to be a major part of the game.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be about half the game.
It's going to be about a third of the game.
Oh, wow.
A third to a half.
Yeah. But there's still lots of little Plip sections where you play like Squidlit 1.
So, okay. So, is there in the game, a lot of times it's Game Boy Color games, since I think that's what you're mimicking this time around, correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of times the games will have multiple endings based off of collectibles. Or certain things that you've done. Like if you 100% of the game, you get a certain ending. If you didn't 100% the game, you get a slightly bad ending. Is Super Squidlit going to have something like that?
We're thinking about it.
We're gonna have like rewards for like finding all the collectibles and stuff.
Yeah, like have a bit of a post game 100%.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna have any kind of like special like different story ending.
Yeah, we don't want to mess with the canon too much.
Because like we're thinking about like collectibles to reveal more backstory.
Yeah.
But we're not gonna have collectibles that affect the ending of the game, because like growing up I was like a huge like lore nerd for every game I played. And so I would play games solely for the lore, and having to like put extra effort to get all of them in would irk me sometimes, and so I don't want to.
And unless we want to go like separate time routes, like on the next game, or like choose an ending to be the canon one, where it's like maybe not the most popular ending, but it's the one that tells like the better story for the next game or something.
Yeah.
Because I think of if you've ever played a Super Star Stacker on the Super Famicom, it's a Kirby game that only came out in Japan. And they have a quote-unquote story mode. It's a puzzle game. Think of it like Puyo Puyo, basically.
Yeah, I've seen videos of it, but I haven't played it.
But if you play the game and get stars in all of the stages, including DDD, you get to come across a secret enemy at the end, and it's Grill. And you don't get to see Grill in any other Kirby game except for Super Star Stacker. Huh. It's a once-in-a-lifetime enemy that only the Japanese get to see for a longest time. But when you get to face off against Grill, there's some dialogue like, hey, like something, 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 because I can't read it in Japanese. And then you go face off against Grill. Now, there's two, so now we're into a different ending. But now we have two other different endings we can extend off of with that, too, is that if you lose to Grill, Grill's like, see you later, sucker, and then flies off into the star realm, basically. But if you defeat Grill's broom is like broken, and she like hangs out in a closet, basically. You kind of just like shut the door on her. So they still kept it, for the most part, story driven along the line, but they just kind of like diverged the path just a little bit of it. So that's why I was curious if you all were going to do something like 100% run, where it's like, even like in Kirby's Adventure, where like if you didn't get all of the buttons, you didn't get to face off against the true final boss. Like you only got to defeat DDD, and then like this big ominous question mark pops up in the background because you didn't hit all the buttons to get the Star Rod. So that's why I was curious if you guys were going to do something maybe similar along those lines or not. But
we're more likely to do an extended ending instead of an alternate one.
Yeah,
sure. With the collectibles, if they are going to be put into the game, are they going to have just like a dialogue lore box associated with them as well too? It's like, you've collected a crown, and this is what the crown means in the lore.
So you do you remember the little like hobo Squidlit who's like, I'm a merchant, I'm going down to Blipston to
Yeah.
Yeah. He has lost his collection of buttons,
Yeah.
and you are tasked with finding as many of them as you can.
And depending on how many buttons you catch, you'll get a special little reward.
Yeah.
And
And they're based on real buttons that I have in my button collection.
yeah.
So with collecting, are you gonna show like the progress on like the pause screen where it's like you've collected 5 out of 20 buttons, or
Yeah, but we haven't
Yeah.
made that yet.
I'm sure, I think I have it in the boss screen actually.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay, cool. Well, Sam made it. This game is big enough where we don't always know what the other person has done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've like
That's fair.
we have like a whiteboard in our room now where we like write down all the stuff we've done, but like we've been working on this for 2 years
Yeah.
now, and so we
Like
just,
a month or two away from 2 years.
Yeah, and so we'll just be like, "Do you remember when you did this?" And it'll just be like, "No, I don't. I do not remember when I did that."
It's like, how does this work? It's like, I don't know. I did it 2 years ago. Like,
yeah.
The joys of programming in general.
yeah.
Let's see what
It's
else.
also like going back to look at your code from 2 years ago and just face palming.
Oh,
Yeah, and just looking at it and be like, "Oh man, this is so
Like,
terrible.
man, I sucked.
Yeah.
Like,
this was awful." What
yeah,
was
the
I
amount of times
thinking?
I've done that. Like, I'll pull up an HTML page and see like JavaScript and CSS. I was like, what was I thinking? Like,
Yeah.
this is so bad.
Yeah.
So you say you added a lot more dialogue boxes to the game.
Yes.
yeah.
Do these dialogue boxes change some of the output of the game at all? So, like, for instance, the first one's like, I'm not a Squidlit.
Oh, the choices, yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I like choices. No, but they do change what people say to you.
Yeah.
Sure.
So like they don't change like the direction of the game. Like there's some points where you can like you'll go to a new section of a game, and then an NPC will ask, who should we watch first? And you can choose between like Plip and Squid Squat, and so you can choose like which segment of that game you want to play first.
Yeah, so
But
that
oh,
could be
sure.
You'll still end up playing both. So
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, we're not gonna have like a Mass Effect style. Like,
No,
we
yeah.
can't afford to do that.
No. Are you gonna release this on Switch as well?
We hope so.
that's the plan.
We don't have a
How-
yes or no answer yet. We
Yeah.
haven't
How?
submitted yet because we need to make a demo and have a YouTuber play it.
Yeah, we're like
And
we need to
then-
make a demo, and then the have a YouTuber play the demo, and then submit that video with our permission request.
Yeah. And we're not done with the demo yet.
Yeah,
That sounds complicated.
it is,
yeah.
but it's worth.
So, like, when you get Squidlit onto the Switch,
I would be
So- so
surprised
sec-
if we didn't get on the Switch.
Yeah, we have a lot more. We have a lot more success under our belt, and we have success that is like directly tied to Nintendo, so they can look at that.
Right.
And I think it'll be a lot easier getting on this time.
Yeah.
yeah, with Squidlit 1 already being out on Steam and itch.io and whatnot, like, was it still a tedious process to get it onto the Switch, even though you already had previous success on a different platform?
Yes. The first time we submitted, we were actually denied,
Yeah.
and
And not
really?
only were we denied, but we waited like 6 months to hear back from them.
yeah, and then we
Oof.
got a denial like 6 months later. So that was pretty early in the Switch's life cycle. So
Yeah, they might have been like
they might have,
tailoring their.
yeah, they were definitely a lot more careful what they were letting onto the Switch.
Yeah, they didn't want another
And,
like.
they didn't want another Wii situation. on
Yeah,
their
where
hands.
there's a lot of
Yeah,
shovelware.
that's
and-
fair.
And like we submitted last year during the summer, and they accepted it. And that, I think one of the reasons we got on is because we had a lot of success with like the Humble Bundle and we've had a lot more YouTube presence with all of you guys and speedrunning.
Yeah, like they really, I'm pretty sure they look at that, and just seeing that there's an active community for such a game. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think it would have gotten on if it weren't for you guys.
And with all of the community and the success we had, and the fact that they were letting the doors open a little bit wider for developers to get onto the Switch, we managed to get on. And then we found out that their testing team is one of the most thorough testing teams I've ever seen. I found glitches that we had no idea existed.
Did you know that if you pressed up and start after the menu was added to the game, like it will crash the game? Like, if you press like up and start on the same frame.
No.
Yeah.
Like, they found that, and we were like, how did you find this? How did you think to look for it? But I'm like, I guess that's why you work at Nintendo as a tester.
Yeah.
Like, dang. But
I mean, I knew if you pressed up and inked almost at the same time, basically when you talk to somebody, you can mess up their dialogue boxes.
They never complained about that. Yeah. Also, we fixed
really?
that.
Oh yeah, we did.
Well, recently. The update should be out on Steam already, and it's about to come out on Nintendo.
No, remember we were showing it somewhere.
Oh yeah.
We were showing it at the
SCAD.
The SCAD talk.
Yeah.
And then it updated in the classroom. So that came through.
All right.
So yeah, we fixed that.
Yep.
All right. That's really all I have for Super Squidlit. Like, I don't want to like say too much about it because I definitely want it to be like a secret.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also
I'm
am
excited
bursting
for
at
it.
the seams to talk about it.
Oh
like,
man, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I can't wait till it gets out so I can just talk about it.
Yes.
I'm very, very excited to play it. So
Can't wait to send out like a small little wave of demos for YouTubers to play around with.
And for and for you in particular, you sound like you'll be a really great playtester. So
yes.
Once we're done finding glitches that we can find ourselves very easily,
we're
like
planning on abusing the speedrunning community a bit and giving it to you guys to like just snap it in half. That way we can find all these prominent glitches and get them done.
yeah.
that's what we're here for. Breaking video games.
Yes.
So yeah, with that, we're gonna do a quick close. We've been going for almost 3 hours. I didn't think it was gonna take this long, but we got really carried away with Squidlit a bit. So, but it was very informative.
Yeah.
But I very much appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about this game, though. So
thank you. It's very fun.
So with that closing, I don't know when this episode comes out. Legs does. I don't ever release the episodes. I'm just a mere host and a marketing person, so I'm the one that sets up all the interviews. So I don't know when this comes out, but we have Retrothon starting in April, I think the second week of April. Game Boy Block is the first day, starting at I think 12 p.m. Central Time. Starting with me with Kirby's Dream Land and going through I think 6 or 7 different Game Boy games. Week-long marathon 24/7 of all various consoles from some PC from the 80s all the way up to the GameCube, I believe. So lots of variety, lots of different games to watch. What else we got going on? We have RPG Limit Break as of right now in a way. Happening in May. So depends on the coronavirus whether or not that happens or not. But as of right now, it's still happening. Then SGDQ will happen hopefully end of June again, depending on this coronavirus stuff.
Yeah. If you get in, will you post on the Squidlit Discord that you got in?
Sure.
Yay!
I can absolutely do that. With that, you can find me, Belthic, at Belthic Gaming on Twitch and Twitter and Instagram. And on TikTok now. I made 2 TikTok videos. They're fantastic. I've learned how to use TikTok as a 32-year-old. And then YouTube, if you just search Belthic Gaming, you'll find me. I don't have enough subscribers to get the URL special thing yet. Sam and Alex, what about you? Where can they reach out to you if they want to, or find more information about Squidlit?
You can find us at Super Squidlit on Twitter. I know we have an Instagram, right?
Yes, we do. We're I think we're Squidlit Inc. on Instagram. And we're also, if our email? Yeah, our email is supersquidlit@gmail.com, and you can talk to us directly.
If you have questions, or if you just want to complain that you don't like you don't like Squidlit, we'll read it.
Yeah, we'll read it.
Yeah.
We'll try and do something about it.
Yeah.
And also we have, if those of you that listen often, we have Patreon. Once we hit $20 a month, we'll start doing live streams of our actual main podcast episodes. So that means Mo and I actually have to look decent in the shower beforehand. So like the way these works is like Mo comes back from the bar, basically, and then I'm just waking up because he's in Belgium and I'm in America, so it's a 7-hour time difference. So I'm just waking up and he's just coming home. So the fact that our episodes sound anything remotely good is amazing, and it's all thanks to Legs. So, and yeah, if you are a patron, you get a special little thing in our Discord. This is Game Boy Discord. If you don't want to do subscribing, but you still want to do something, we have a PayPal as well too. DM either Mo, myself, or Legs if you do a PayPal thing, because we can't type PayPal to Discord, and I want to thank you in some way or another. So please let us know on that. And you can find all this information on gbrunners.com/TIGB. We're eventually going to get our stuff onto YouTube as well too. It's just a slow process. We're all really busy right now. So yeah, again, I want to thank Sam and Alex for coming up on the podcast and talking about Squidlit and a little bit about Super Squidlit. My eyes have been opened to a lot more of the lore than I anticipated and thought was going to happen. So this was fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
And so with that, thank you all for hanging out. Next episode you'll hear is from Mo and I believe it's going to be the Bonk series with Lat Mackie as our special guest.
Oh.
So yeah, stay tuned for that. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
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 I squeak in real life. I wiggle when I'm happy. I
Yeah.
am a Squidlit.